What are we going to talk about today?
Talk?
Talk.
I thought we were gonna debate.
Yeah, they were gonna throw tampons.
Have a master debate.
Yeah.
I am the master debater.
That's like when people want to debate, it's just masturbating, isn't it?
Mhm.
I'm
So-
like, okay, for example, like when we're talking to people, are we debating them?
No.
Like,
No.
let's have a debate about it. It's like you're already saying up front, you're just going to hold on to your position and they're going to hold on to theirs. I'm not interested in debating somebody. I'm interested in persuading somebody.
Yeah.
A debate means I could be wrong and I could be persuaded. Like we're still coming to an agreement. We're still trying to figure it out. No, there's no debate. I'm not debating. What's there to debate about? Like every child needs a secure, safe environment in which to grow and to be programmed effectively. This is the thing here's the point to consider. When people talk about having compassion for other people, why should we have compassion for an adult in the first world? Why do they deserve our compassion?
I would just say got him.
Got him.
Yeah. I think that's a wrap. There's no debate.
Debate me. Like no one can debate me on it. Like so,
Yeah.
I'm sure
Here,
people listening going like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course you
I'll
should.
I'll play devil's advocate. Okay.
You're gonna play the debater.
Oh, where'd Cam go?
He's gone.
He's
God
fucking
took him
gone.
out.
He's fucking gone, dude.
That's what happens when you talk shit.
He fucking hit the wrong fucking button.
And one of those first world people that he didn't have compassion for. Just took it out.
Yeah, they're sitting over at their Zoom cubicle right now, and they're like, "Oh, fuck this!" Guy. They're like watching what we're talking.
Delete.
Well, you guys ever hear that description of the word passion as I think it's from Tony Robbins. He said something like it's love mixed with anger.
I've not heard that, but I see how someone could maybe say that.
It's like when you're really passionate. And what the reason I'm bringing that up is because if you look at like every word, there's always our emotional understanding of it. Right. And then what we're here to do is align it to like a physical, real understanding that can be lived. Right. For example, like the word love.
Mhm.
Right. As Bernard shares, we've talked about it. Love isn't some feeling that you get. When Jesus was saying love thy neighbor, it wasn't just have a good feeling for your neighbor. It means the real love. That's why you'll hear Cameron's.
Wait. Don't ruin this for me. I have good feelings for my neighbors. I'm already doing that. Don't.
That's unfortunate.
Don't
Let me
change that
guess. Let me guess. You
You
guys
need to
don't have
not
any,
do that, Drake. Do not.
you don't
feel
have
good
any
about it.
real relationship with your neighbors.
I don't even know their names, but I
There
love
you
them. I love them.
but you love them.
Yeah.
But so that's the point. It's like we think if we smile at somebody, I used to think that like me making my difference in the world is like make sure you smile at enough people, spread enough positivity.
Dude, that must have been really hard for you when everyone was wearing masks.
Oh, I was lucky I didn't have that anymore. Now think about that. Think about the people pleasing, social manipulation that you would be going through if you're thinking, I just need to make people happy. That's my purpose. Get other people to smile. And then there's COVID, and everyone's like, if you don't take the vaccine, you're fucked. If you don't support trans Black women, you're a racist. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, just getting pulled in every direction.
Mhm.
And you just close off more. But my point is, in bringing that up, what Cameron's talking about, and we've had this discussion come up recently between us of like what a safe space is. Cameron made a really good video about that. There's like the emotional part of it. Then there's the reality where we have friends in South Africa who are like, yeah, I was able to buy ammo yesterday because of the civil war. And we need to be able to defend ourselves. We're trying to move out of the country because we might die.
Mhm.
Does that sound like a safe space? Do they even have the
No.
liberty to think about safe space as some kind of emotional thing rather than a real tangible thing?
No.
Now look at love, right? All these like starving children. They're not thinking, do I feel love for my neighbor?
Mhm.
It's like, can we give to one another in a way that we can survive? It's a different kind of love, right? But the thing that we don't realize that Katie's been making this point for literally like half a decade, probably longer, but just as long as I see. But I'm only realizing it now. I only saw a post about it recently. But the basic concept being real happiness is having your basic needs met. And when I would hear that, I'm like, no, it's not. Like I got
Happiness is
food.
way more than that, man. Like that's like fucking. Come on, man.
I got food, and this is like years back, right? I'm like, I got food, I got shelter, and this is subconscious. It would just run through me, and I just keep scrolling through Facebook, right? I got food, I got shelter, and I'm not happy.
Did you have
But-
sex? That's probably what you were missing. That's
That's a
basic.
good one. That's a good one.
Basic.
But even so, because there was that time period, I did have the sex, but it's like none of that was guaranteed. That's what's causing the problems.
Guaranteed for you or for everyone?
For I'm
everyone.
talking about it on an individual level
Mhm.
first. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's about everyone, right? Oh shit,
Mhm.
he's coming back, dude. So my point with that is, oh wow, if I didn't have to work in order to have a shelter over my head, and to live in one, I didn't have to work in order to have food. And because of that, I had the emotional stability to look at myself and be patient with my partner and develop a real relationship, because I would always think back to when I'm happiest. It's like when I was younger, when I would think when am I happiest, it's just like when I'm playing with my cousins and we're just like hanging out, having a barbecue or something like that.
Yeah.
It's actually not, happiness is not anything special beyond that. If you really look at it, Cameron made a comment about how Katie said real happiness is sunshine or something like that.
No, she said happiness is a warm sun.
Happiness is a warm sun.
That's fun. That's good stuff. That's really clever.
Can you talk about that for a second? Oh, also, what's happening?
You didn't get my message? I texted you guys on Zoom. I mean, not Zoom, the other thing, Signal. Yeah, my power went out. In my office, not at home. I'm in my office, and the whole power went out. It's like thunderstorming here in Texas or where I
Okay. I was like,
Texas. Yeah. No, it suddenly just became pitch black dark.
nice.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm just calling in now for those of you on the podcast.
Caller number one, please tell us.
Listening to the podcast. Yeah. Hi guys. This is.
What's your name? Where are you from?
Cameron. This is Dameron.
Damn.
And I think that Cameron Cope is a stupid idiot dum-dum.
I was like, as soon as Mitch said, "I'll play devil's advocate," then suddenly the power all went out.
Oh shit.
Everyone's like, Mitch, too much.
It would have been cool if like the power went out and then everything became red and then Satan appeared. He was like,
I am Mitchell.
someone is advocating for me. The final advocate has spoken, and I have.
What were we
It's funny.
talking about?
It's funny because we joke like Mitch is like God, like we used to say that all the time. Like Mitch is like God, Mitchell. What's his name mean?
That's literally what my name means. You can look it up
Exactly.
Right.
on the internet. Look it up on Google.
You guys were like, you guys forgot about that? What the fuck?
I'm like, Drake, who are you talking to about Mitch being a god? He's just like by himself in his room, being a master debator
Mitch
about
is
it.
God in front of my mirror.
Yes,
On
I
my
have
knee.
followers.
And you're like sitting in a room with like fake cutouts of me and Cameron. You're like, we were talking about how Mitch is God, right? Guys, Mitch is God. So what we were talking about is
Oh man.
there's how with words we'll have the emotional content of it, and then we'll have like the real practical living of the word. And I'm bringing this up in regards to you talking about compassion.
And the example that you were giving was how Tony Robbins says passion is love and anger combined.
Yes, something like that. And I think I have that right. And then, another like the best example that I know for sure is like how everybody talks of love versus what love actually would be. in reality is to give. And same thing with happiness. It's like we define happiness as this thing, right, inside of us that it happens when I don't fucking know even the parameters that we set. It's just like you experience happiness sometimes, right? But real happiness is when you just have your basic needs met. You'll be fucking happy for sure, no doubt. If everybody had their basic needs met, you'd be happy. And I was just looping that back into the compassion point. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to add my own context to it. It's like, there's a really great audio by Bernard that's called Happiness is an Inside Job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's addressing that point, which is obviously not true. And that's what you find out when you listen to it. But he's, like that statement people have, it's an inside job, like you got to do it yourself kind of. And it's like, the problem is if you say, no, my happiness is dependent totally on other people. So if people don't act a certain way or do this or give me that or whatever, I'm not happy. And that's obviously bullshit. From the perspective of like, oh, if you don't compliment my shoes, I'm unhappy. So it's like, well, you shouldn't make your happiness dependent upon that, right? So in that sense, there's some wisdom in that, right? But if you take it to the level of, no, I can literally just inside myself imagine and become blissful, no matter what the circumstances are, into eternity, that's not real. Like, can you be blissful in the context of, hey, I'm standing up, I'm making a difference, I'm going to change the system, I'm going to go through a lot of trials, I'm going to go through a lot of growth and like a lot of frustration and just doubt and all these things, but within it, I'm not going to let anything deter me from my path. I'm going to be blissful within it and like have a great time and keep going and all that. Like, meaning what's more important, that I'm blissful or that I stay on the path of creating a world that's best for all? Right. So it's like, okay, what if I'm not creating a world that's best for all? And I'm literally just not focused on that at all, not contributing in any way to it. I'm just only feeling blissful. Is that acceptable? And somebody could say, yes, that's what I choose. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what you choose. But then you can't tell me I don't have a right to try to convince you otherwise because you're not affected by outside circumstances, right? So I can do whatever the fuck I want then.
And so what was
if your happiness is not, if you're totally a master of your own happiness, then you can't, why even in any way try to lift a finger to do anything at all? Just be a master of your own happiness and don't worry about the outside circumstances or what anyone else does. So isn't there a balance? The common sense isn't there. I don't need to be some fucking mystical guru with secret knowledge to understand the common sense that, okay, look, you within yourself internally can choose to make your internal states depend on outward things that are not real, in which case you're going to be unhappy because you're making yourself, your internal state, dependent upon stuff that you can't control. But on the other side of it, if you say, well, my internal state is going to be totally independent from external reality, you don't realize your internal state is a part of external reality. There is no inner versus outer. Not in reality. There is no actual separation. And isn't that what all the gurus say anyways? There's no actual separation. Well, then how is your inner state actually separate than the outer? So let's take it to the actual logical conclusion, which is there is a dependency between both. Like if your inner state, does your inner state affect outward? Yes, because it determines what you do. And then that affects outward reality, as we call it outward reality. And our outward reality affects our internal state. Like you're just going to sit here and tell a child whose brain didn't form properly because they didn't get proper nutrition and their water was full of lead and they were beat by their uncle and raped by their grandpa. Oh, you just got to like not worry about external circumstances and just like be blissful. Now, am I going to be like, no, you should just be a victim to those circumstances and you should forever be depressed and unhappy because of that. You can never be happy. I'm not saying that either. But if we don't recognize that what you program into a child in the first 7 years essentially dictates who they're going to become after that, you're not understanding how the inner creates the outer, because that's how the outer is created by the inner. The inner that we put into a child in the first 7 years, all the children in this world, is determining the outer that we all experience later when they become adults. So the world that we're in right now is a result of how generations past were programmed as children, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's so key.
It's how the elite, and it's primarily how the elite were programmed as children, and the non-elite, which is everybody. So I would say primarily, but my point is, like, the elite make the sort of general decisions. They just manipulate the masses to get the consent to do it, whether it's implicit or whether it's, explicit consent. Like with the COVID stuff, no one really gave explicit consent because no one voted on any of this stuff, but everyone went along with it, basically. And some people were vocal, like we were vocal, like this is bullshit. But I mean, we still, even if you didn't like wear the mask all the time or whatever, it's like you still allowed the whole world to go, because you didn't have a choice. You didn't make it because the masses agreed, and therefore the elite got the permission to do what the fuck they want to do. Right. So the point I was making about compassion is, what does it mean to have compassion? Does it mean if somebody's weak that you're like, oh wow, you're so weak, I should just like, not make you feel bad about being weak? Is that what it, because that's what it, in practice, when people talk about it generally, that's what they actually mean. And when I'm talking about, and I made a video called Who is the New 1%? People need to get to their fucking souls. When I'm talking to the new 1%. I'm not talking to poor people. I'm not talking to poor people. They can't do anything. So my compassion is, I'm going to fucking stand up and use my position as being a middle class, upper middle class background to stand up and become the elite 1% and change the fucking system with a bunch of other people because I can't do it by myself. That's my compassion. Mm-hmm. So any other compassion people do is totally fucking irrelevant. The kind of compassion that people want to have and they're expecting us to have or anyone else to have is no different than giving a homeless person the dollar that they're asking for.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't fucking do anything. It might make you feel good, and it might allow you to build up your edifice of pretending to be a good person, but it doesn't change anything. And if you want to do it, great, but does it have a consequence? Because are you so smart that by not giving that person a dollar or by giving it, you didn't just fuck them over by giving them the dollar, because now they're like, why the fuck do I need to ever change when they could have? Mm-hmm. And instead you're actually, and then here's the question. Okay, you gave them the dollar. No big deal, right? All right, now what did you do to change the system? Because if you're doing that, then I would say it doesn't really fucking matter. If you want to give them the dollars, give them the dollar. It doesn't matter, does it? Because if you're changing the system, you're helping not one person individually, cool. But if you're changing the system, then you're solving the problem. So where is real compassion? It's not in letting someone be weak. And that doesn't mean you have to all the time go around kicking people. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I make a very big distinction, especially between children and adults, because children, they need patience. They need understanding. They need, there's moments where you have to be firm and you have to be a little aggressive, but realize you're programming them. The adult, you're not programming the adult. You want to talk about compassion for adults. It's like, where's the compassion that McDonald's has by programming everyone to eat their shitty fucking hamburgers?
Right.
And programming children, and
with the Happy Meals and all that.
Right, all that, just everything. Just, I'm loving it. So you're exploiting the word love. You're triggering people to associate that with your product so that they will want McDonald's, and it's unhealthy and all these things. We all know this. Where's the compassion there?
Right, there's none. There's
right?
no compassion.
There's none. So it's like compassion should be a system, not your fucking individual. And it's like, oh, I'm compassionate, therefore I'm great. It's like when somebody says, you need to have more compassion, I'm like you're trying to shame me into changing my behavior because you think that I care about that. Because unlike it's like, if someone is trying to tell me, yo, you need to be more compassionate, it's like, oh, you want to feel like a good person. So you're thinking that if you tell me I'm not being compassionate, I'll feel bad because I want to be a good person, but I don't. So the criteria upon which I'm basing myself and my decisions is not the same as what you're doing. So it just doesn't work. Like I was talking to Katie this morning. So we were just talking about people trying to use shame. And I'm like, I've already been ashamed. I've already been very ashamed, and I'm done with that. will I maybe face new levels of shame that I haven't seen and have to walk through that? That's a possibility, because I don't know what I don't know. You know, I only can see what I see at the moment, and I can face in the moment, and I can go further. But what I'm saying is, no one's going to use shame to get me to step down. You know, like at the end of the day, I'm not going to answer to that person. I'm going to answer to myself, right? And if I didn't say something, and I can't tell you how many times I've pushed the point with somebody in terms of like, maybe some people might feel like I'm being vague because you guys have a lot more context for what I'm talking about because you interact with me and we interact with each other, right? But what I'm talking about is when people, it's like if you push people, like if you point out that they're fucking up or that they're fucking weak or they're not doing what's best or they're making excuses or they're a loser, and I've defined what that means to me many times in this podcast, what a loser means, right? Not doing what's best for all. It's allowing limitations and excuses to not do it. If you're doing those things, then I have a right and an obligation to point it out, right? And obviously there's different ways to do that, but there's been many times where I've really gone hard on somebody in the sense of, like, I'm not even being mean, it's just being direct. Being very direct with the person, like, you're fucking up. This is not, like, what you're doing is harmful to your kid. And no parent wants to hear that. But then a year later, that person's like, fuck you, right? And then a year later, they come back and they're like, you know what, you were right. Now I'm going to do what you're suggesting. And then a year after that, they're like, holy shit, I'm so glad I did what you suggested because everything has changed and they're doing so much better now. And it's like, yeah, that's why I said it. That was real compassion. So it's problem is, you know, maybe we can talk about this too, because you were already talking about this a little bit. Also, people talk about words, like the word compassion, then you have like an image behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is the image that you guys have? Like, I mean, maybe you don't have it anymore, but you can still relate to the image that people have because that memory is still
It's
there.
like reaching down to help somebody. You know, it's like, you know, putting your hand out, and when somebody's like maybe homeless or whatever, and you're like reaching out and helping them and pulling them up. You know,
or like
here's one,
like a Mother Teresa, you know.
Yeah, she was an evil fucker.
We all know about that one.
Do you guys ever hear this story? Like, I remember seeing this a bunch when I was a kid, and I would go to the church with my grandparents, and like in the little fellowship place, like where they would have little sausages and little snacks after the thing.
you said sausages.
And there's like, well, yeah, those little breakfast, like cocktail sausages.
Okay.
Wieners.
You have little breakfast
Yeah,
sausages
wieners.
at the church.
Little wieners at your church.
No, wieners.
I know what
Yeah.
kind of church this was.
Yeah, it wasn't amazing. It was a little tiny Methodist church, but anyways, what was it? Oh yeah, there was like this like kind of framed poster, and it was like this picture of footprints on the sand. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I know. what
Say
you're
again?
talking about.
You've heard this? You've heard this thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Footprints on the sand, right? And it's like there's like two sets of footprints and there's only one set of footprints, right? And it's like this whole story where it's like this guy conversing with Jesus or God or whatever, and it's like, hey, you know, like, what's up with these two sets of footprints? Like, you know, you were with me, and then now there's only one. Like, why would you leave me? Like, when I'm in my time of need and suffering and all this stuff, right? Like, what's going on here, right? And basically Jesus is like, oh, that one set of footprints, right? That was when I was carrying you. Right? Meaning you thought those were your footprints, but those are mine. I was carrying. Right?
Yeah.
And that sounds nice. It sounds really nice, right? And it makes the person feel like, oh, I want to be like that.
Well, it's playing on those first 7 years of when you were a child and you loved to be held by your parents.
And so wait,
Yeah,
is it?
that's when it. See, but
that
that was a great point. That's when you need that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it one set of
So there
footsteps
is a place for
that
that.
becomes two? I'm just trying to understand.
So it's two sets of footprints,
There's just places where there's only one set.
and then there's places where it's only one, and those are the times where it's hardest.
This makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. And he was like, hey, why would you leave me in those times? And he's like, no, that's when I was carrying you. And it's like, hold on. If that were the case, why would the person have been complaining about it?
You're like, wait, you were carrying me, and it was fucking my life was shit. Then Jesus Christ.
Oh, you mean like when I lost my job and my wife left me and everyone fucking hated me? You were carrying me then? Ah, thanks, bro.
Damn, can you
Like,
put me down in the future? Don't pick me up next time.
Can you like just like go away?
The fuck was that?
But
Dude?
it's like, what is that? Okay, but what is it that the person means that they were carried in those moments? Like, what do they mean by that?
Like they were
It's
so
really-
weak.
And real
they were
quick,
just like
I just want to
drifting.
accentuate this point. If we just go back to that concept of the emotional word, like the emotional definition of the word versus like the actual word, was Jesus literally carrying a person?
No,
How
exactly.
would it even help if you lost your job? It wouldn't. Right? If someone just started picking
See,
you
but
up
the
and carrying you,
Yeah,
you'd be like,
the
no,
person will
stop, I
say,
need to
but I
find
made
another
it
job.
through.
Right?
They'll be like, I made
point
it
is
through. I
it's
eventually got
purely
through it.
emotional.
I eventually got through it, and that was how it helped me through, right?
Yeah.
But they don't realize, no, that's not. It wasn't because someone carried you. It's because your vocabulary was at a certain level, your thermostat, so that it brought you back to that point. It was your programming that did that. It wasn't anybody else.
Mhm.
But it's such a great example
Right.
you pointed this out. Yeah.
Why are
what-
why are all these homeless guys a lot of times like veterans?
Because they're fucked up from seeing everything they've seen in war.
Right. Even though they were adults, that war shit fucked with their programming.
Yeah.
And that's why they can't get out of that situation, even if you give them $1.
Yeah.
And that's what no one wants to fix. No one knows how to fix what we do. But I'm saying no one, people pretend. So they're not fixing the first 7 years. In those 7 years, you got some extra stuff in there from being in those experiences because it was high impact. It was high emotional. It fucked with you. It became a part of you. It became a part of your memories. It became a part of who you are. I mean, how can you go to war and participate in slaughtering people and then be like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm just back and I just want to start my bookshop and, you're like, what?
And you know, it's funny. Kian put this out recently. At the very beginning of Century of Self. Right. I think my mic is fucking around here. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, that's fine.
I usually just slap it up to see.
Well,
if it
okay,
works.
so you're louder than Cam was though. So maybe just go a little
Okay,
quiet.
how's this?
Yeah, that's good.
I turned it down a little bit. Okay.
I'm kind of just
he was
talking
pointing out at
quiet
the
though, but yeah,
I mean, he's also on the phone call thing.
true.
Kian was mentioning at the start of Century of the Self, they make this point about how some people come back from war and their PTSD fucked up, and other people come back from war and they're stable.
Mhm.
And he was just making this point of like, why would it be different between two people? Why they're seeing the same shit, their best friend's face getting blown off and all this stuff, right? It's like maybe not particularly that scenario, but they're seeing the same gruesome, horrible visuals and all that stuff. It's just based off that individual's past experience when they were a child that is playing into how they're processing all of this information.
Right,
And
exactly.
then it fucks up their whole life, right?
But-
Or
Because if they can process the point that, oh, I was a victim to this point, meaning I was thrown into this, it's not me, and I can forgive myself for those things that I saw and did, if they can process that point, then they can move on.
Oh,
And that might happen at a very low internal level that they're not even aware of.
there's
Or they might also have program where it's like, yeah, that was fucking awesome. I shot a bunch of dudes. It was great, man. Put me back in there.
yeah. There's a couple of things here. Like one,
Hold on. Because if you think that, oh, you can't do fucked up stuff like that and then also build a business. I mean, there's people who their purpose is they run companies that build bombs.
yeah.
So you could. It's just a matter of programming. So if you're very sensitive, I would suppose, you know what I mean? And you like actually are like, this was not okay. What happened? You know, like why couldn't I function when I was like 20 years old? Why did I break down? Because I was like, I don't want to participate in this fucking system. I'm questioning it. And everyone around me, like my family members were all like, what's the big deal? And it's like, oh, you don't fucking get it. You don't care. You've lost any point of life within you. You don't care. You're just a fucking system.
So the 2 points that I was seeing there, One is like, it's the same thing when they look at people who get sick, right? And they're exposed to the same environment, same viral load, or all
Right.
that stuff, right? And they see that, oh, the people who've had like more trauma in their childhoods are more prone to getting sick,
Right.
right? And then
Right. They're not as robust.
right, and the related thing to that is there's a study by Ainsworth. It's called like Ainsworth's Strange Study, something like that, and it has to deal with this concept in psychology about secure attachment, insecure attachment, ambivalent, and I don't know, something else, something along those lines, right? But basically, a child will either have a secure attachment to their parent, meaning like um, they're comfortable and secure around their parent, and they're comfortable and secure within themselves, right? Or they'll have an insecure attachment, meaning that child is insecure to begin with, and their parent is
No,
not
they're
able
not insecure to begin with.
no,
Their
they're
parent
not.
is
No, I'm
fucking
getting to that. I'm
unstable.
getting to that. I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Chill out.
Well, I heard that. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, no,
Right,
no,
you didn't
no.
say it right.
Okay. I'll explain it.
Okay.
So
Are you
basically,
saying that the idea that the kid is insecure to begin with is an idea in?
no.
You just fucked up those words, or
Here's what I'm saying.
I had to
No,
clarify.
it's let me clarify.
okay.
So, what happens is, if a mother, it's specifically like with mothers, right? If a mother is not there for the child, and they're not supporting the child, and the child cannot trust the mother, the child will develop an insecure attachment, meaning the child cannot feel comforted. And so what they did with this study was they had parents bring in their child to a room. There's toys everywhere and everything, and it's just a small room, just the parent and the child. They're playing with some toys, and then they give a signal to the mother to leave the room. And so the mother opens the door, leaves the child behind, closes the door, and the child starts crying. And then they tell the mother to go back in there, and the mother goes back in. And if the child has a secure attachment, meaning the child trusts the mother, then when the mother picks up the child can be comforted, they feel better, and then they go back to playing, right? And it happens very quickly. If the child does not trust the mother, meaning the mother was not there for the child, and is not reliable, and you can even see it, like when you watch examples of this experiment, you can see the way that the mother comforts the child is she's like kind of like laughing at them while they're like crying, and like trying to hand them toys, and the child's like fucking throwing the toys away, like I don't want that. Like the child's like basically cannot be comforted by the mother. And so what's interesting about it is what caused the child in that moment, if you're looking myopically, in that moment, what caused the child to be upset was the mother going away. And so you would think what would be the resolution would be the mother coming back. But even that does not solve the problem. And so the implication is, if a child develops an insecure attachment because a mother is unreliable, that child, the way that they interact with the world is basically, they can't actually, when they get what they want, they can't actually like enjoy it. They don't trust anything. Nothing is like nothing satisfies that, because already within them they're insecure. Already within them they're missing that ability to handle challenges or anything like that, right? And so yeah, that was the reason why.
Right. So the difference between the two mothers is vocabulary, and you'll see it. Watch that. So the way that they're interacting with the child is not the cause, but it's an indicator of how that parent has been with the child throughout this whole time that they've been with them in their life.
Yeah.
So when the mother is coming back and she's comforting the child in an effective way versus the one who's like, hey, do you want a toy? Let me give you a lollipop. Blah, blah, blah. Come on, stop crying. It's okay. It's fine. That is their vocabulary with how they interact with their child.
Yeah.
You're seeing an expression of their vocabulary, which is how they perceive the point with how they interact with it, how they deal with it. And another thing that's interesting you said was you said specifically mothers.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Because the child will develop an attachment with the mother first. And they said, basically, like they'll develop an attachment with the father much later on, like in comparison for like an infant, you know.
And we
like,
saw this with both of our kids.
Yeah.
With both of our kids, right? Like both of them, right? When they would cry and need and be upset about something, they would want Katie. Right. And even still, like Seneca, if she falls down and gets hurt and it's like kind of, you know, pretty severe, like, you know, obviously not life threatening, but, you know, really, really freaking hurt or whatever. If I pick her up, she's like, I want Katie. So I'll take her to Katie. Right. And Katie will hold her and she'll calm down. And sometimes she'll just stay with me and I'll comfort her. And, you know, but there's a progression there. Right. And now, like even when you guys came down in November, Seneca wasn't really interested in being around me. It's like, not like she didn't want me around. It was just, she wasn't really interested in being with me that much. But now she wants to be around me a lot. It's like the relationship you guys see that I have with Max, now that's developing with Seneca.
Right.
And the reason I point that out is because this whole thing of like, oh, you know, the dad can stay at home, the mom can stay at home, you kind of do whatever you feel like. It's like whatever you want to do as an individual. It's like about your happiness, not about what's best for the child. I mean, whatever's best for the child is what makes you happy. You know, that's how it works. Like, no. That's like saying, okay, I'm going to program a computer, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to install. I'm going to install all the software that the program's going to run before I install the operating system. Because that makes me happy. I like doing that part first. Yeah, okay. And then after that, I'm going to put the operating system. It's like, that's not going to work. You might start to make some kind of progress somehow, but it's not going to ultimately be the right way to do it. You can't fuck it up. That's like, I mean, I'm using all these power tools now. And it's like, you don't just do it how you feel like. Right. And that was going to be that story I was going to tell you guys. I can't show you now because I'm on my phone now. The power gets back on, I'll show you. But I have this big red spot on the top of my fingernail, kind of towards the cuticle bed of my middle finger on my right hand. It's like a big dark red spot because I was, so I built this chicken run for the chicken coop, right? As you probably know. And as part of that, I have to kind of, it's like, it's a wooden frame, but then the walls themselves are like screening, right? So like air can pass through. And so the chickens are basically outside, even though it's screened in. So like predators can't get the chicken. And use this stuff called hardware cloth, which is basically wire meshing. It's just a specific type. And because they only had small rolls at the hardware stores, I went ahead and ordered like 100-foot roll of this stuff on Amazon. And it came a few days later. And so now what I had to do was I had to like pull out a section of it, lay it over the frame, staple it in, and then use my, I have something called a Dremel Ultra Saw. It's basically like a grinder. It's like a little tiny handsaw. And like, then I cut off the excess and then that part's still attached to the roll. So the roll is still very tight, you know, but I'm kind of like pulling it out as I need it and cutting it off and so forth, right? Well, the first day I got it and I'm just starting this process, right? I have to move this roll down across the frame, meaning like I have it on one section, I roll it out, I cut it, then I like shift it over, roll it out, cut it, kind of visualize it, right? And so I had to roll it, I have to pull it down. But the problem is it's so heavy, not like so heavy I can't move it, but I mean, it is very heavy to where if you pull the outside layer, it just pulls that and the core stays where it's at. So it starts to like, you know, kind of accordion out. And if you pull the inside, it just pulls it out from the outside layer. So it doesn't all move as one unit. You see what I'm saying? And so I was like, well, okay, I need to reach in there into the central core because there's like a little bit of a hole in the center, you know, kind of like a donut, right? And I'll pull in there and then I'll pull the top layer and I'll pull it all together. Okay, no big deal. So I started doing that. The problem is with this hardware cloth is like, it's wire, it's thick metal wire, and it's kind of flexible, but it's not extremely, it's not like, you know, like a screen door screen. It's like thick metal wire that holds up. And it'll snag your clothing because it's got all these little metal like wire pieces sticking out everywhere, you know. And so I reach in there and I start pulling, right? And now it's starting to shift. And then one of these little tiny metal wire pieces sticks into my fingernail at the top there, right? And I'm like, ow, that sucks. So I try to pull my hand out. Well, all that does is twist it down, tightens it up. Okay. So I'm like, oh, that hurts. So I started to twist it the other way. So you would think just reverse it, right? Nope, that twisted up more. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, let me rotate the outside and the inside. I'm trying to like twist it all around. This thing's heavy. It's 100 feet of this stuff, right? And I'm like, well, maybe if I pick it up, I can loosen the pressure. No, that makes it worse because it's like all the stuff on the top is pressing down now. I'm holding it up. Now I've got this thing over my knee. I'm holding it. I got my hand stuck in the middle. It's tightening. I got my hand on the outside. And I'm in the barn. My cell phone's not going to work inside that metal building. Katie's with the kids in the house. I'm like, there's a moment where I'm like, maybe if I yell for Katie, but I'm like, what's she going to do? Like, I just have to figure out a way to untwist my hand because everything I'm doing, and I can feel it digging more and more and more and more into my finger. And I'm like, if I just pull my hand out, it's probably going to rip my finger. It's going to rip my nail off, which I don't mind so much about that, but it might rip through my bone. I don't know. And there was a lot of things going through my mind in that moment. But finally, it's just like whatever I did, I untwisted it the right way, and it just pulled it right out of my finger. And it fucking hurt a little bit. And it wasn't like excruciating or anything like that, but it was definitely like, there was a moment where I'm like, I might rip my finger off, you know, or like rip off half my finger. It's going to like stick through there and just rip through, you know what I mean? My point being, you know what I learned from that?
What?
Wear gloves when you're dealing with hardware cloth, right? Like you would think that'd be obvious, but I mean, it was like not obvious. Like, yeah, it's like if you touch it, it's going to cut you. It's just like, yeah. And I didn't consider all of that. That was just not in my book. Like if I had grown up with it, I would know that. I would know not to put my hand in the middle of the hardware cloth without a glove on or something, right? That's right. My neighbor is I'm at my office for those who don't know. So anyways, my point is, just because I feel like something is a certain way or I want to do it a certain way, that's not how reality works. And now I have to use gloves. And let me ask you a question. Where was the compassion from that hardware cloth?
Yeah, it's just not a thing.
Like the hardware cloth is a system.
Well,
it's a network, an arrangement of metal in a certain configuration. And I put my hand in it and I tightened it down because I was ignorant. But where's the compassion? I mean, oh, will it let you out? No, it fucking hurt. And I figured out how to take my hand out. And we have a world where when a child is born, they're born into an environment that's like that metal wire, where it's just tightening down on them and just hurting them. And then everyone else is going, oh, no, that's okay. It's just now that it's ripped off all your flesh, you're like, now here's what you do. You just gotta like, even though you got all your flesh ripped off, you just kind of like feel good about it. Just think about how everything is great and just be so grateful about it. And it's like, why don't we teach kids not to put their hands in the mesh? Come on, like that's you gotta have some compassion, okay? You're just gonna make them feel bad because they don't know that. Because like if my son were to go put his hand in it, guess what I would do?
You'd stop him.
I'd be like, Max, stop. And I'd run over there and I'd do whatever I can to prevent him from doing it. Of course, you know what else I'd do?
Teach him about it beforehand.
Teach him about it beforehand. Put the place where it can't fuck with him or lock the barn or whatever I need to do to prevent it.
Yeah.
Change the system. Because if the system is just leave hardware cloth laying around and don't teach your kids, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? And that's what we're doing right now in this world.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It is.
This is such a huge point. I'm seeing this a lot for myself too, now that I have a bit of land and just a lot more responsibility. And it's like, I think a lot of guys, well, just people in general need to hear this. Like, you got to be willing to go out there in the world and get smacked around a bit and learn. Like, I see how there's a lot of fear within people because we don't have the vocabulary of knowing how to deal effectively with reality. And so we look for things like compassion or feeling good or just kind of hiding from making shit happen. But that's been a huge thing I've realized now this past week. I've been, now here for a little while. And kind of like with Cameron, it's like every week there seems to be something new that I have to learn. I have to go figure out, or like go be willing to like not have it go how I planned. But I don't just sit there like hoping and praying like, okay, I just hope that, for example, that this garden works. Or even just taking care of Teddy, our dog. Like it's a different environment for him. So he's acting different. He's like a bit more on edge. It's just like not going how I thought it would. And I've had, experiences where, for example, like he bites me, but it's just because I didn't set it up right. I didn't know what I was dealing with. In those moments, it's like, it doesn't feel good. It's like, ow, like he could really bite. But I see how I wasn't supporting him properly. I didn't give him the right toys, or didn't go outside with him and like let him chew on a stick for a while. Like there's just so much to learn. But the main point is that willingness to learn, because it's so easy to just sit inside, fuck around on Instagram, go just isolate yourself from the world. But that is, you're completely abusing your life instead of going out there and figuring out how to make shit happen. And that takes a willingness and it takes a level of strength to go do it. But that's what it's going to take if we're actually serious about making a real change in the world. Like it's all these little moments of accumulating responsibility. Those little moments when you get pissed or you react, or your partner says something or whatever, you get your hand stuck in the, the hardware mesh or whatever you call it. It's like, those are the moments where you can either learn and then change. And if you don't have Technotutor, you're not going to be able to do this. Like you're going to be going so freaking slow and you're just going to keep repeating the patterns. But if you have Technotutor,
so hold on, somebody can say, well, how do you know that? And it's like, look at the fucking world. There's the evidence right there. Now, you may not believe us that with Technotutor you can change. That's a different point.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't realize if you don't have it, that just equals the way things are right now.
Yeah. And it's just
the fucking world.
This system that's just perpetuating, getting worse and worse. And a few people are clamping down and creating more and more control and authority, where the average person is at the moment just screwed. But that's why we make this podcast, so that the average person can then see, oh, cool. Hey, I want to do this. I want to take more responsibility. And here's how.
Average, when we say average, the problem is people have such a low self-esteem that they're like, oh, I'm average. I can't do anything. You can be extraordinary as an average person. I don't mean by staying an average person. I mean, the difference between an average person and an above average person, call it the elite 1%, whatever you want, is just their programming.
Yeah. So I was so average when I met
average,
you guys.
yeah, the average person just means your programming is the same as the average person. It doesn't mean you're not capable. The problem is we think, oh, those people are special because they're not average. That's not it. It's like in school, the people who have the higher grade point average are just have the vocabulary and the memorization ability to do well in school. That's all it is. The other everyone else is in the average. So we can take the average and shift the average up. That's the whole point of what we're doing. I had somebody on my YouTube on a comment accusing us of being communists.
Nice.
They said, you follow the late communist Bernard Pullman. I'm like,
where does he talk about communism?
The one time he talked about communism was when in Resonant Seed, when he said, what was so bad about the communist countries? Like, at least everyone was educated at a higher level than in the capitalist countries, which is true. Go to Soviet Russia. They had a higher level of education. And look at China. Like, don't fucking argue with me. Go look. In terms of what people define as the education system, which is like the forced compulsory schooling, China does it better. I don't agree with that system. But the fucking retards who are like, we need to make our school system better. Like, well, China does that better. So do you want to do that? Or do you want to have real education? Which is like, read that book right there. John Taylor Gatto, Underground History of American Education. I think that's what it's called. He talks about what real education was and then what education has become, right? It's not a top down. Like there's nothing about what we do that says everybody give up your rights and your property to everybody else and let the government control you and all that. This is the total fucking opposite of everything we're saying. We're saying self-responsibility. And people say, well, if people don't have techno tutor, you're saying, so they have to have what you have to do it. And it's like, we're using capitalism to support people to get tools that improve their lives so they can take more responsibility in their life. What about that is communism? And usually the people saying it, guess how many businesses they've ever fucking run?
0.
And they're probably still jerking off to porn and doing drugs or jerking off to conspiracy theories or whatever. Like this one guy on my YouTube, he said, I made that whole video about who's the new 1%. And his comment was, nothing can change until the Federal Reserve no longer exists.
I love it.
What I said was, I said, you are a real dumbass. Right? And it was cool because why did I say that? So like, that's not compassionate. If you know so much, Cameron, you should help this guy understand. He already thinks he knows.
If he watched that video and that was his comment, and it's not even relevant whether or not he's right. It's like, if you watched that video in particular and your comment is some shit about a fucking Federal Reserve, you can't process anything. There's nothing that you can say to him in that comment that's going to get him to be like, oh shit, other than being like, well, anyways, this is.
But what was cool about that particular case is when I said that, he came back with a whole bunch of other stuff that was personal about me that he was holding inside, which was why I did that. It's like, okay, get out the real truth. You don't want to talk about the Federal Reserve. You're just trying to get into my attention, which is fine. That's why I make the videos. I want to support. I want to explain.
That's why you left that comment on the video.
Right. So, but why did I say that about the Federal? See, probably this guy's thinking that I disagree with him. I do disagree in the sense that he says nothing can change until this. Nothing can change. That's what he said. Okay, so are you going to use words specifically or are you going to just fuck around? Nothing can change until this thing happens. Well, how is that going to happen? If nothing can change until that happens. Because my whole point of the video was become the 1%, and guess who decides about those things?
Exactly, the 1%.
Those people.
Yeah.
They're the people who decide that. It's really less than 1%, but we know, right? But it's those people who like read The Creature of Jekyll Island. Who created it?
Yeah.
Was it the average person?
No.
No, they consented to it through manipulation. Interesting, it was right around the time they created the compulsory school system. It was right around the time of women's liberation, which just means basically brainwashing women to want to be men and totally disempowering them and fucking up their children like we were talking about earlier, because now the women are all abandoning their children and creating insecure attachments. And so now they've formed their attachment to what?
Their job.
Their job and the state.
Yeah.
That's a whole fucking plan. So to sit here and go, well, until the elite decide to stop doing what they're doing, nothing can change. It's like, why don't you change? And why don't you become elite? And why don't you become their peers? And why don't you persuade them? Because that was the whole point of what I said in that video. So you might think, oh, calling someone a dumbass, that's not compassion. How are you defining compassion? Well, Jesus wouldn't do that. Jesus fucking went into the temple and fucking flipped the tables. Well, but he did that because he had to do this. I don't care what your excuse is. You're just idolizing this guy. And you're saying your ideas and images of this person is such, and you're trying to control my behavior. Why? Because I'm here and Jesus isn't. And I'm here and I'm saying you have to change. And like, here's how I look at it, okay? I'm here in this reality, yeah?
Yeah.
You guys are here in this reality.
Yeah.
You are me in another life. So when you're fucking up, I'm fucking up. If I'm fucking up, you're fucking up.
Mm-hmm.
What right do you have? Where do I end and where do you begin?
A lot of people would say with your body, right?
But really, isn't everything frequency and vibration? Where does one frequency and vibration end, and where does one begin? There
Yeah,
is
and
no solid physical
it's
matter,
interconnected.
guys. We're all one source, guys. We're all one source. Right. That's right. We are one source. So when I'm directing you, I'm directing me. No, we're all one source, but also we have total freedom, and you can't control what another person does, but we're all one source. Which is it? It's like, that's like a child arguing with me that unicorns are real. They're not real. Just because you saw a picture of one. I know they were made up. It's like, guys, does a diamond mean that you love a woman?
No.
Do you have to have a diamond ring to get married?
No.
Nope.
We know it was marketed and invented. We know the whole story about how it became the idea of engagement was a diamond ring, and it was because of the De Beers or who the fuck. So someone was like, no, diamonds are just the symbol of marriage, and it's ordained by God. I'm like, that's not what happened. Like, it didn't exist fucking 80 years ago or whatever it was. Somebody made it up. That'd be like believing Happy Meals have always existed. Like, no, somebody made it up.
No, God made Happy Meals to make us happy.
And he
Yeah.
placed it under the golden arches.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, watch The Founder. Someone created it. It's just like they created religion. It's the same shit. It's like, are we here to follow people? Or are we here to stand as equals and create a new system? And don't you think if we stand up, or as we're standing up, that people are going to attack? People are going to try and stop us.
Oh yeah, we see it almost every day now.
And is it going to be the people? Is it going to be the elite?
I have to be.
Not necessarily. Is it going to be the elite that attacks? Not necessarily. I think it's more the people that have given up and they're just being spiteful.
Ultimately, it's going to be the average person that stops change, because that's why we're saying, again, the average person is actually the 1%, as we know. The average, meaning we're talking about the first world, the Western world. That's where change is going to come from. It's the only part of the world that values individual freedom. And people want to fight and say, well, you're not valuing my individual freedom. You guys are communists. You want to take away my individual freedom. You already don't have individual freedom. We're the only ones who are going to show you and everyone else how to actually have it. Because if everyone doesn't have an equally effective vocabulary, there cannot be individual freedom.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not making that rule. That's a fact of reality. That's common sense. If everyone does not have an equally effective vocabulary, you cannot have individual freedom. Tell me why.
Because if everyone doesn't have an equally effective vocabulary, it's like if you're trying to communicate with someone, they're not going to understand you, and they're going to mess it up, and they're going to get frustrated. It's like if you have a class where you're teaching people how to bake a cake, and like everyone doesn't understand the words that you're using. Some people understand more, others understand less. You're not all going to get the same end result, and it's going to seem unfair. And it's going to be like, oh, I can't do it. It's going to be a self-judgment or like lacking in confidence, especially because they're going to see that they're not capable. They are not equal. And so I forgot what the original question was, but if everyone doesn't have...
If you guys came to my house, and let's say I didn't have kids, could I leave a set of really fucking sharp ass kitchen knives just laying out on the counter?
Yes.
Not around Mitch.
Why? Why could I?
Because we're all educated to know how to manipulate
Right.
that.
But would I do that with a 2-year-old walking around necessarily?
No, they don't have the context. They don't understand.
Because they don't have the vocabulary of, hey, that's a knife. You don't just grab it and just like throw it or something.
Yeah.
Education. Vocabulary, equal vocabulary, effective vocabulary. Yeah, it doesn't mean I have to bring everyone down to the level of a 2-year-old.
Like, for example,
like, oh, you're communist. Like, so you think I'm saying I want everyone to be 2-year-olds?
if you don't know how the immune system works and how your body works, then somebody can tell you how it works and sell you something that's not best for you. If you don't know something, then you're giving your authority away to somebody else to take responsibility for that. Now, there's a difference between giving Mitchell the responsibility of managing something, but we both have the vocabulary or understanding. So I can know when he's doing something wrong and point it out, even though he's managing it, if that makes sense. Like, we can be equally educated, but Cameron can be responsible for the knives. I could be
We
responsible.
don't have to do different. We can do different things. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Equally
I know
educated means
that
we can trust each other.
if Cameron starts saying things like, "Oh, you know what? Instead, guys, trust me, it just makes sense. I'll take 5 cookies. You got 2 each." And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Just trust me. Just trust me." It's like, no. But that's what the politicians are doing. It's just
Right.
like,
Yeah.
just trust me. I know what's best. We just have to wear.
Everyone should have the same, guys. What do you mean? You get 2, you get 2, you get 2. Everyone gets the same. I don't understand what is the confusion here.
It's like
You
you're
get 2,
taking
you get 2,
5.
you get 2.
But you have 5.
Okay, yeah, I know, but everybody gets the same. You get 2, you get 2, you get 2. I don't know what's the problem.
You're not doing that.
Everyone has equal access to the resources of the cookies. You
Right.
get 2, 2, 2. What's the problem?
Okay, Mitchell's white, Drake's black, I'm brown, and we all get 2. Yeah, that's equality. Okay, that makes sense.
So I get 5, right? Okay.
That's pretty much how it goes, right?
Right, because but guys, come on. I'm the government. Like, I got to do more things. I got to take care of more people. Is the equality?
It's just-
How many did you get? And how many did you got 2, right? So you're equal. So come on, what's the problem? It's like, and then imagine someone going, yes.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Actually.
But I want to go back real quick to that knife analogy, right? Look at the bigger context of things. If there's even one person who does not have an equally effective vocabulary, are you going to trust them with total freedom?
No.
No.
It's like when I was in the Air Force, right? And we did our basic training stuff and we went to the shooting range, right? And we had M16s, which is basically the military version of an AR-15, right? We had M16s, right? And we're going to go shoot them, right? At the range. And they're giving us an instruction class. And there's probably like several hundred people there at the range. And they're talking to all of us, right? And they're basically, and people who have no experience ever even touching a gun. Of course, they trained us a little bit on it beforehand about cleaning it, taking it apart, all that stuff, right? But they maybe even never shot a gun, right? And the instructor's up there and he's explaining some stuff, right? And what do they know? They know they've got people in the audience who are jokers. You know, like Asif's kind of a joker type, right? You know, or you used to be like that, right? Where you'll do stuff that's silly because it's funny for a laugh, right? Right? At a gun range, that's not the place for it. You don't do stuff for a laugh at a gun range. You don't go, look, you don't do that. You don't turn around suddenly and, oh, hey, look, there's a fly. What if I shot the fly? No, you don't do that. And what they explained to us at the range, this is in the Air Force, they said, look, I want you guys to take a look up there and look up there. And there's also some places you can't see and I'm not going to tell you. Those are called snipers. And if any of you fucks around, we will take you out. We don't want to do that. That's the last thing we want to do today. But do not fuck around. Now, it's ironic because that's total fucking control, isn't it? They're like, they will fucking shoot you in the head if you even fucking make a move that looks stupid. But that's the US military. That's the ones that fight for our freedom. But with freedom comes responsibility. They're giving us the freedom of holding these guns that have fully automatic capability, full auto.
Damn.
Yeah, like you could turn around and spray.
And there's people who never held a weapon.
Never even touched a gun. And they're like, we're going to trust you, but we'll also kill you if you fuck around. Just make no mistake. We will kill you if you fuck around. How dare they say like they're training us to go kill people. Let's not pretend here. Where's the compassion? Where's the compassion?
The compassion is making sure that
We will kill you if you try to kill other people.
Right.
No, making
All
sure
about
women can be
killing.
part of that too.
We like to kill. We just don't want to kill you if we don't have to, but we will if you become the
Women,
enemy.
transgender men and transgender women could also be part of that group.
Who's the
who
real
could fuck up
enemy? Who's the real enemy in this context of that person fucking around?
Who's the enemy of the person fucking around?
No, who is the enemy in the context of that person fucking around? Where they have to shoot
fucks around.
The person.
It's their lack of effective vocabulary.
Yeah,
Because
it'd be them
I'm a pretty
doing
smart
something
person.
stupid.
I like to play. I like to make jokes. I like to screw around. But I'm smart enough to know that's not a place where you do it. When I'm in that scenario, I'm very serious. I'm not trying to be funny. I don't need to feel funny. I don't need to laugh. I don't need to have any jokes. We can go do that later. Yep. This is not where I'm interested in having jokes. The fun I'm going to have is shooting at the target. Keep your jokes. And so if you can't be flexible in that moment of putting my joking personality aside, your vocabulary is not effective. You're stupid. So should you be like, what if the person's just like, I just like to have fun. Like, what's the big deal, guys? Like, I just want to do it. I'm going to do it no matter what. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to start pretending to shoot people.
What are you guys so worried about? Jeez,
should they allow them to do that? What about the person who's in there who has real actual mental instability issues? And this, because they're in a high pressure basic training situation, they're snapping.
Yeah.
And they actually do want to shoot you. Like, well, the guy was just joking. Well, how do you know they're joking?
Right.
What if that guy was the guy that everybody was picking on because he kept fucking around and we had to do 100 fucking push-ups because he was fucking around the whole time and they're punishing us so that we will put him in line. And now he's snapped because he can't handle it because of his emotional instability, because of his programming. And now he's going to snap and fucking turn around and shoot everybody. And you don't think that happens? Go watch Full Metal Jacket. Go watch that movie. Right? That's pretty
well, you
realistic.
ruined it. Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, but it'll still get you right there.
Nice.
Right? But I'm serious. Like, so where's the freedom? Because in the military, imagine you're going to go and fight for freedom, yeah? And the freedom of you shouldn't be mean to people. You should be compassionate and you should let everybody have their opinions and all this stuff, right? And that's why we support our troops, because they fight so that we can have that freedom. And then you join the military and you're like, I'm an American. I have freedom. Like, and the drill sergeant is like, shut the fuck up, get on the ground, and guess what you're going to do today? You see this toothbrush? You're going to clean all the grout in this tile until it's white. And you're like, but the tile's gray. Are you arguing with me? Oh, guess what you just got? Now you're going to clean the bathroom too with it. Oh, you want to sleep tonight? Oh, I'm sorry. Because after you're done with that, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go run 4 miles. That's reality of life in the military. And your feelings do not matter at all to anyone in that situation. At all. Like, not one single fucking bit. If you cry, it's like, oh, you're crying. Oh, you're so sad. Oh, it's so sad. Look, everybody's crying. They don't fucking care. Because if you're going to go fight the enemy and you're going to cry because they thought you were a boy when you were a girl, guess what? A 5.56 round doesn't care whether you're a boy or a girl, because they're not aiming at your dick. They don't care. So, but here's my point. The irony of it, right? Why does everybody support the troops? Because they defend our freedom. Heck, if you've been in the military, you will find it is the place where you have, other than perhaps a prison, actually probably more so than a prison,
I was gonna
the
say.
least freedom possible.
Yeah.
So reconcile that one. Being in the military is like living in a communist dictatorship. I'm not criticizing the military. It's a consequence of us having all the vocabulary to where we have wars, and it's a necessary thing in the context of the system. Because I certainly don't want China coming over here and just do whatever they want. So it's good that we have a strong military in the context of the way things are. As it is, but I'm willing to change it so I don't justify it. But so no, before anyone says, look at this guy, he hates the military. I was in the fucking military, were you? So don't give me that bullshit. But my point is, you have the situation, now to think about, well, but come on, you need to have that because everybody has to be on the same page and move as one unit. You need everybody on the same page with the same vocabulary, with the same ideas, with the same starting point. Do you want people in there who hate America? Hell no, get those fuckers out of here. Get them out of the country. Oh, so you don't want freedom for everybody. Nobody who says they want freedom actually wants freedom for everybody because they're busy telling me I shouldn't have the opinions I have. They're retarded. That's it. And so what we're saying is maximum freedom equals maximum self-responsibility. That's only possible when you understand everything, when you have a high vocabulary, when you can communicate. And only if you understand that every action, every thought, every feeling, everything should be in alignment with what's best for everyone. Because that's real freedom. Real freedom is the freedom to experience a world where it's best for you and everyone else. Freedom is not the freedom to abuse. If you are abusive, that is not being free. There's a price, isn't there? Isn't there a price if you abuse? So how is that free?
Yeah. Like if you don't wear your mask in Canada, or is that what you mean? Like there's a fine for it?
Well, that's an example, isn't it? Yeah. Right? But I'm saying, like, if you abuse somebody, if you abuse a child, what's the consequence?
They're fucked up.
Right? Yeah. And now they're going to vote for who? Joe Biden.
Fucked up people. Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can't, you let parents paint however they want. It's like, well, okay, but why are you complaining about the school system and critical race theory and all this other stuff? Right. Like, if you want freedom, let the communists do what they want to do then.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, you got to have some rules. I'm like, so you don't believe in free? Like, where the fuck what is it? So everything we're saying is the only way, it's common sense. It's not something we made up. It's common sense. If you want freedom, you have to educate everyone effectively. And if you don't have a way to impact the first 7 years and direct that point to where the person has an effective understanding of words, which is how we create reality as human beings, then you will not be able to create a world or a system that's best for everybody. That will always lead to what?
War.
Always lead to war. It'll always lead to control. If you do not educate everyone to be effectively equal, you always have to control. So are there contexts where the current context is you have to exert a little bit of control or direction over things? Yes, but it should still be done in the starting point of getting the person to the point of taking self-responsibility.
Which will always be the case when you have children. Even in a world that's best, they still need to be educated.
Absolutely, yeah. No, in a world that's best doesn't mean there's no problems. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. The thing is, people go like, oh, well, you just want to eliminate all problems, so you want to control everybody. No, I want to educate everyone effectively, so no matter what problems come up, we can all work together and solve them. That's what I'm talking about. That's a world that's best for all. Everyone has an equally effective vocabulary to deal with all problems that may arise and to prevent problems that are unnecessary. It's antithetical to control.
And that's the way I experienced my relationship with my brother in my business, my relationship with Melat. It's like, oh, good, another problem, great, because that's inside of us. Let's get it out so we can fix it, and now we can progress further. This is the same concept of when we have a system that is taking care of everybody, that just sets the context for us to actually be able to solve things. It just sets the condition where we can actually start solving problems. Yeah. If you really look at it, right? It's not the solution. It's the solution to be able to implement solutions. Otherwise, there's no incentive.
It's not utopia.
Right.
Utopia is looking at the image as the result. What we're talking about is creating the conditions for freedom, where freedom can work. I don't know what that will look like. So this is not us imposing a vision of the world. This is us saying, here's the necessary conditions for us all to get everything we all want. So you're not allowed to want things that are not best. And common sense, because the person who says, well, that's not fair, is like, okay, so would you allow rapists to rape? They would say no. Okay, so you agree if it's harmful, we shouldn't allow people to do it.
Right.
What were you going to say, Asif?
That's where the constant question that comes in right there is, well, who's going to decide that? It's like, let's just all decide together and to start with the basic things.
Yeah, let's start with what we already can decide on.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, but the only way that could happen, because if you have a belief where, a transgender man can breastfeed their baby, you're going to have to let go of that to find out what is best. Right? Because Melat was telling me they're doing some documentary of some kind of documentation of a male who transitioned to a female, had a child with a female who transitioned to a male. So a transgender male and a transgender female, and they had a child together. The male got pregnant because it's a female. I said, okay. And
But the other one's trying to breastfeed?
the female, who's actually a
Okay.
male, but transitioned to a female, they're
Okay.
trying to breastfeed the baby.
So I want you guys to imagine like scientists sitting around in a room, like watching, going, and they've got like their notes and they're like, and you're like, guys, I can save you some time. It's not gonna work.
Now,
And then you got Jeff Goldblum going, life finds a way. And you're like, no, it's not gonna find a way, guys.
so there are documentations of men producing milk, but
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to figure out how to get
the point
the
is
man to produce the milk, the woman to produce milk.
Christine was here over the weekend, and she's headed back now. But we were just talking
Look,
about.
you're just gonna throw that in Drake's face?
Yeah.
Just gonna like,
What was that about?
gonna-
Come on.
She's
come
gonna
on.
be there for Mitch came on the podcast. He's like, it's so hard without Jess. He's like, man, I know what single men like. What I know what that's like. Maylet's going. Maylet and Megan, they're going to hang out with Christine in Toronto this weekend. And I was like, Maylet, when are you going? She's like, I'll probably leave Friday, like after work or whatever. And I was like, okay. She's like, why? Why are you asking? I'm like, I'm just trying to plan like when should I suppress the most so I can avoid all the problems so that when you're gone, she started laughing. I'm like, well, I'm just trying to see when I'm going to be depressed and life is going to get really hard.
I'm just scheduling my depression.
Because happiness is just having your basic needs taken care of. I'm not good at doing that for myself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding around. It was just a joke.
It's hard to do all your basic needs as a man without a woman. It's not hard, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
being in a relationship with the opposite sex is a need.
Right, exactly. That's one of the
It's
things
not a
I mentioned when
preference.
we were off,
Mm.
is like you have your basic needs taken care of so that you can take the time to establish a real relationship with a partner, right? What were we talking about before? Oh yeah. So she's telling me that story, right? And the example was like, oh, they're trying to reproduce that point of, there's stories of men. There's proof that men have produced milk, breast milk, and then Christine was just making this point of like, yeah, usually that means like you have cancer. Like the substance of that milk is a fucking problem that should not be given to a baby. In
Oh,
other words,
shit.
if a man is
like it's
producing
not
milk,
actual
Think about it.
breast milk that's
Think about it.
proper.
think about the
Wow.
hormone imbalance if a man is producing milk for a baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the
Mhm.
point is, like, man, I was just saying, like, well, we were all just saying, that's total, utter fucking child abuse.
When you said utter, what did you mean? Like,
that was good. Nice. I got to give you that one. But yeah, it's total, complete child abuse, because that baby is literally latching on to the nipple of a man trying to get breastfed, and nothing's going to come of it. And because of the mental delusion that they're going through, there's a difference, right? You shared some kind of interview with a transgender female, so male to female, but they're like, I know I'm a male. I know I have a dick.
Well, he's like, yeah.
I know I'm not
fu-
going to produce milk.
I'm basically messed up from my childhood, and nothing I've done makes me feel basically okay other than doing this.
Right.
But I know it's a coping mechanism.
Like, I'm not going to try to have a period or, like,
It's like, I don't care if people call me a male or a female. It doesn't matter because I just dress like this because it makes me feel a little bit better.
it's like, first is pretty clear. you
Okay.
know? Yeah. And the point of the tools that we have is like, you can.
I mean, they're not getting any other support, are they?
Exactly. Right. It's like you can go back and process that stuff. Right. But the real point here is, think about that child who's going to grow up now. That's unacceptable. And collectively, like, think about this. Everybody listening to this, you could imagine, whether it's you specifically, you're getting triggered by what I say, or you can see that other people, if they were to listen to this, they would get triggered by it. That's a problem. Because if we can't discuss something as basic as, oh yeah, men can't breastfeed, that's not best for a baby, we can never have freedom. That's why it's,
Also,
as we all know, the word freedom is being free from dumb.
if we're not allowed to say that, meaning you're not allowed to tell somebody they can't breastfeed because they're a man or whatever, because you might hurt their feelings. Then you're not allowed to tell me that I can't say that because it might hurt my feelings.
Right.
So, but that's not the actual starting point of why the person is saying you can't tell the person that.
If it was about not
They're
fucking up-
lying. Hold on. Here's the thing. They know that you care about other people's feelings. They're using it against you.
Right.
So that you will not question what they're doing. They do not care. That's why they're willing to tell you, stop doing what you're doing, and they don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
Man, I
It's
really
the
hope-
proof. And the fact that you're willing to back off is the proof that you do care about that.
Yeah.
So I'll say right now, I don't care about anyone's feelings. I don't care about my own feelings. Now, when they come up, does it catch my attention? Yes. But the whole point of the process is to go, okay, why am I going to allow myself to be directed by this feeling?
Oh,
I don't have to suppress it.
Let me clarify it. If, for example, if me and Cameron were talking and I started getting,
The hard on.
yeah.
You
If I-
started producing milk.
If I got
From where?
if I got really, really upset or something like that, Cameron wouldn't be like, dude, just fucking push through your fucking feelings. He'd be like, hey, what's coming up for you? So when he says he doesn't care about your feelings, that's not going to change his decision. It's not going to change what he's saying. It shouldn't be a determining factor.
Right, but if you were like, dude, Cameron, you're such bullshit. Like, you can't change the world. Like, everything you do is just a bullshit. And I'd be like, hold on, fuck you. First of all, shut the fuck up. What the fuck are you talking about right now? You see what I mean? Like, it might be a different approach.
Right. And I'm just looking at the point of like, what people's minds go to when you hear like, I don't care about your feelings.
Oh, by the way, the end result of that conversation on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
That you can go look at it for yourself. But at the end of it, he was like, hey, by the way, he was like, if you guys, and there's context as to how it got to this, right? But he was like, if you guys, as long as you're not supporting communism and socialism, I support you guys.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So he
wow.
went total full on combating me to, as long as you're not doing these things, then that's cool. Because I didn't feed back to him what he thought it was. And also I didn't feed back to him, I give a fuck about what you think or feel. Like, let's talk about the real thing here. This is who I am. And he was like, well, maybe you don't understand who I am. I'm like, fair enough. But the problem was you came in with assumptions.
Right.
And I didn't back down and he didn't back down and now we're good. And I don't know, we'll see. If we meet or talk more, that's fine. I'm not going to adjust. But what were you going to say?
The reason that's important is because I just want to like accentuate what you said earlier about the person who's telling you to do it for the good of the people don't give a fuck about you. The person who's telling
what the
you,
communist dictators say.
right? The person who's telling you, hey, like that's offensive, they don't care about offending you. They don't care.
Now, how do you reconcile that with us saying do what's best for all?
What's the problem with that?
How are we not the people saying do it for the good of the people then?
Right.
Because when they're saying for the good of the people, it means a very different thing than when we're saying educate everyone so they can take self-responsibility. So that
The emotional
collectively we
point
can
versus
create it.
the practical point.
What are they telling you to do?
Right.
Sacrifice
Obey.
yourself.
Sacrifice yourself. Right.
Right. So that's what you should be looking at. Not because people will say, oh, you guys are using this best for all because see, that's an indicator you guys are like just trying to like be like the communists and you're trying to control everybody. It's like everybody at the end of the day has within them the point of wanting to do the best thing.
Yeah.
The question is whether it was actually best. So if anyone wants to argue with me, don't go, well, since you're saying best for all, therefore you're a communist. Instead, let's talk about what we're actually suggesting. That's the level where we can have a discussion. If you go, you guys are using aggressive recruiting tactics, that's because you're bad. See, it shows you're bad. It's like, so does Apple. So does Amazon. So does the fucking Seattle Seahawks. Like, don't you think if they have a player that they want, they're going to be like, hey, bro, if you want to come and play for us, that's cool. If you want to play for the Raiders, that's cool too, whatever.
Like, we're going to give you fucking everything. We're going to give you Lambo. We're going to give you a pen.
Colleges, like what other things people recruit for? Like, do you know,
Military.
if you've read the Amazon fucking story, you would know Who do you think Amazon's biggest competitor was, at least initially, and maybe still?
eBay.
Actually, yes, but that wasn't really their big competitor.
Oh,
per
Walmart.
se.
Walmart.
It was, yeah, eBay, Walmart, you could kind of debate about it, but the point is, yeah, Walmart, because they're the retailer. eBay was
Yeah.
more the online part.
Yeah.
The biggest retailer. Guess who he fucking got to help them develop their logistics and so forth?
Some kind of like
Their main guy.
From Walmart.
Yeah.
The guy from Walmart was basically afraid for his life. He couldn't even remain in Arkansas because he was like, if I leave Walmart, I'm dead to all those people.
Fuck.
Like, you're out. It's like you joined one mafia family to another. So you think Walmart was happy about it?
No.
So this bullshit of like, oh, you can't be aggressive.
What did Amazon have to give to him? What did Amazon have to give to him in order to recruit him? Right? Why would he be willing to give it all up? You know, like you don't think they're aggressive?
I don't remember
Fucking
exactly
give you-
what it was, but I think it had to do with showing like we're the future and Walmart's not.
Yeah.
I think that had a lot to do with it, plus probably money and stuff. But at that level, I think that guy probably had as much money as he wanted.
And right, it's like when people are saying, "Hey, you're using aggressive talking tactics." Think about it, right? If you're using aggressive sales tactics, recruiting tactics, are we going and fucking lassoing people and pulling? It's like
I should
we're
try that.
using aggressive.
You know,
Yeah, that's a pretty good
you
one.
guys come down here in November, and I will teach you how to do that.
You'll have a horse by then,
Lack of education to education.
right?
Has
We'll be
anyone ever
riding
tried that?
So
We'll have our own sales courses we can market through Facebook called like Lasso Your Next Customer.
it'll be literally that. Yeah.
It'll just be
so
lessons on how to do a lasso.
it's like, how could you say, and that's the level that we're at, right? Transcending into the fifth dimension is everybody going into their minds now. That's where everybody's at, right? You're no longer in 4D space and time. Okay. Did you do something to somebody to actually physically harm them? No. Okay. Then what are you like? What are you upset about? And you know, the funny thing is, it's like you get that feedback through talking to people online, right? Like on comment threads or something like that.
Oh,
They're like,
right,
"You're being
right,
aggressive
right.
or something.
Yeah.
It's like, does that make any fucking sense?
But like when you talk in person,
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but
Sorry,
comment
no,
threads are
no, sorry.
cyberbullying.
Words will fuck me up and break my bones.
It's like that's kind of the whole point of what we're trying to tell everybody.
Yeah.
right?
You're really limited by your vocabulary if you're reacting to words. If someone calls me a dumbass, I'm like, okay.
Why? What do you think?
It's like, okay, well, I'm not, but all right. I mean, whatever. You're an idiot. You're not compassionate. My 4-year-old can read. Yours can't.
What's more important?
And other people that I've supported by creating systems, their kids can read now when they couldn't before and wouldn't have.
I want to,
otherwise.
'cause I've heard this before, right? It's like, okay, for example, Cameron says, you know, people call me not compassionate, but my 4-year-old can read. Why would you accept any reason? Like, for example, right? For those of you who have been around watching, listening to these, it's like, you know, the results that specifically, we're just going to talk about children for a moment. You know, the results that children can get with Technitude. It's unbelievable. Honestly speaking, right? Why would you accept any excuse as to why you wouldn't give your child that?
Instant gratification is so
or
embedded
stand
in
in the
them.
way of us, or stand in the way of other people getting it.
Mhm.
Right. Mitchell, what are you saying?
That's abusive.
It's like the time and patience required to actually do that, which isn't much really, but it's
But I'm talking about even before that, even getting Technotutor and actually using it with your child.
It's because they don't want to let go of what they believe their life is. They don't want to let go of their image of how life is supposed to be. And it's not even like, well, part of it is they don't want to let go. The other part is that that's what they were given in their first 7 years of life. That's what they understand about life. They have a low vocabulary to begin with.
Right. They have a bunch of information inside of them that says if someone is mean and aggressive or not compassionate, that means they're a bad person, and bad people can't be right. They can't have anything going good for them. So I don't want that person to be right. And therefore, I'm not going to consider anything they're saying because they're saying it in a mean way or some bullshit like that.
Or in a way that you perceive as mean.
Right, exactly. I'm just talking about from that person's perspective, right? Yeah. Or, you know,
I'm not mean, I'm just focused. It's like it's a line in from Kanye's one of Kanye's songs. He says, "I'm not mean, I'm just focused." And like it's a really great line because like when you're focused, you don't let shit stand in your way.
You know? The word serious means to kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but the word serious means to not worry about things that don't matter. For example, if I am here to do something, I'm not going to let other things get in the way of that. So I'm just serious about what I'm here to do. Now, in the context of somebody,
it doesn't mean you can't have fun. It's just, is you going to let it get in the way or not?
Exactly. And fun is an important part of being
if you're serious about life, you won't, if you're serious about life, you won't be focused on trying to be happy. Mm-hmm. You can be happy if it doesn't get in the way of being alive.
Mm-hmm. And over time, as people walk this process, you will see the things that make you happy change. You can change what makes you happy. So don't accept the thing that makes you happy right now in your mind.
I can't change because I can't be happy.
Right, exactly, right? It's like, no, that the happiness will just follow you wherever you go. If you're focused on what's best. Yeah. So going back to, there's a real example that I remember this. I remember, you know, when me and Cameron were talking way back, and I'm sure Drake would know, of like a text message conversation where Cameron was just like, you're fucking up your kids if you don't do this. You've known about what we're doing for so long and you didn't do it. And then they basically were like, I'm not talking to you anymore for like 6 months or a year. They're like, hey, I totally see what you're doing. I get it now. I want Technotutor. And now they're participating heavily and they're watching their children change. It's amazing. My point is,
and just the other day, that person texted me and said, hey, I was talking to somebody recently about Technotutor and they want to know more about it. Can I give them your number?
Oh, nice.
Cool. So let's look at the other side of that. It's like, are you going to accept this person is an asshole as a reason to not give the best education for your children? Because that's the exact same thing of, I have beliefs about other people and how things work and all that stuff. Because of that, even though I see the video, I see whatever, fuck that person. I can't get past how I feel about this in order to educate my child. That's the exact same thing of a transgender man trying to breastfeed their baby and fucking over their child because they're not willing to let go of this emotional attachment to whatever. It's like, and what the other point that Cameron was mentioning is, why would you stand in the way of other people educating their children? That's what it means when people are talking shit, right? They're talking shit for no reason other than, yeah, but my experience.
Yeah, because if you don't like it, okay, walk away.
Just go focus on your life and go
be irrelevant somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, don't make your purpose to just spite somebody else or something else.
Effective.
What was that? Restart.
People who are not
cut it out.
Are going to. Oh, I see. Okay.
Did it cut out for you?
Mine's kind of being weird. Anytime you're being effective and you're getting results, even a little bit of result, people who can't be effective are going to try to get in on it. But the reason they're not effective is because they have low vocabulary, so they can't participate as an equal. So the only way they can participate and suck energy from what you're doing is by being a hater.
Yeah.
Now
that's all it is.
So Cameron would always do this thing where, you know, we'd be watching something or listening to something, and he would point out a layer of information below what I could perceive, or, you know, underneath what I could perceive. But what Cameron's describing is a pattern that if you use Technotutor if you walk this process for yourself, you'll just be able to see where you do that and where other people do that. And that's what it means to see through the matrix.
You'll start seeing more patterns.
Yes.
Like you'll literally become John Nash with the newspapers and like the pins and the paper, like the communists are sending you secret messages. And
Yeah. But it happens automatically, so you don't have to write it all down. So here's the cool part, okay?
I don't actually see, by the way, I don't actually see reality the way everyone else sees it. Like when I look at everything, what I'm seeing is like, it's like one of those big boards with like all the lines crossing between every point. Like that meme from Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny, where he's like got the cigarette and he's like got, all the stuff on the board, That's like inside, that's my mind. It's just like a big conspiracy board of connections.
It's just like China.
Like I see people's faces and I before it just says China. or it says good.
Yeah. Fuck. This is really important.
Oh, you're good.
You were talking about seeing underlying patterns and so forth and seeing through the matrix.
Oh yeah. Okay. Here's where a lot of people get stuck. They think because they can see through the matrix, problem solved. And hold on.
But what do they mean by okay.
Exactly? Hold on. They think because they figured out that the Federal Reserve is a private enterprise or fucking the earth is flat or some bullshit. They think because they considered something that may or may
that
not,
they become aware of something.
Exactly. That's the solution. If everybody just became aware of it, right? Cameron talks about this. But then you also have, for example, right? People who are recognizing, oh, wow, this world's really fucked up. Wow, I really like what you guys are doing in Self-Perfected or Destiny or whatever. Okay. And they're like, wow, this world, it really is fucked up. And we're all just really focused on how we're feeling. And wow, like I got to walk this process and, kind of let go of that. Okay. I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm walking my process. Okay. In the movie, The Matrix, what's his first name? Something Anderson, right? You remember?
John?
Neo? No.
Not Neo, not when he's in the system.
I think it's John Anderson, I think.
Let's just call him Mr. Anderson. I don't think it's John. I don't know why. But anyways.
I'm looking it up.
So when he's in the system, right? He's just, Mr. Anderson. He's gonna figure it out. Cute asshole.
I was wrong.
See, that's why I don't have to just believe Cameron.
It's Keanu Reeves.
It was Thomas Anderson.
Really?
Oh, interesting, guys. See, here's
Yeah.
I'm Neo.
Oh shit, dude. His middle name.
He was 37.
Oh shit. Was it actually
37.
Thomas Anderson?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was 6'1". I'm only like almost 6 feet, and his eye color was brown.
Damn it, you're short Neo. You're mini Neo.
I'm a Neo.
Don't worry about it. Just let it go.
I'm Neo.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So here's the important part, okay? He takes the red, blue pill.
No, the red one.
Right? He's in that moment, right? And then he takes the red pill. And then he comes out of the matrix and he's like, holy fuck. This world is fucked. I'm going to try to make it, survive. Does the movie end there? Fuck no.
Ooh.
He goes back into the system. He goes back into the system to make a fucking difference. No, go ahead.
No, you're doing great. I'll just add
no, go for it.
Well, it was just the point of, and then all the people in the system were like trying to fight him for changing the system.
Right. And guess what? The system or Agent Smith. What does the word agent mean? It means something that is acting on behalf of something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't care what group you're a part of. I don't care. I don't care if it's.
Don't say any names.
Yeah, I know. I'm like going through my mind, but I literally mean no matter the group. Even if you're part of TechnoTutor, I don't care. It's if you're doing it or not. Because Cameron talked about this point in the past of like, even your partner, you don't have to just trust your partner. Trust should be based off a history of predictable behavior, if you will. A history of predictability.
Even then, you don't trust.
Exactly. But
that doesn't mean you mistrust or you distrust.
Mm-hmm. It's like I will when I ask like when me and Kian are meeting at a certain time or said, hey, can you bring this thing for me before you leave your house if you're coming over? I'll remind him 3-4 times. It's irrelevant whether he remembered or not. I'm just going to take my responsibility and be like, hey, I really want that thing. So I'm just going to remind him once or twice, even if he gets annoyed. And every time he gets annoyed, this is an old story, but anyways, if you get annoyed, he'd be like, I get it, because I would forget things in the past. It's not like, oh, because he's my brother and he's walking this process, I'm just going to assume that he's going to, he's using TechnoTutor, so his memory should be great. It's like, that's fucking irrelevant.
Imagine the person who's like, well, you don't trust him? Wow, you have trust issues.
Right. Right.
It's like, that doesn't work on me. Mm-hmm. I don't need for you to believe I don't have trust issues to have high self-esteem.
Right.
I don't trust you. Fuck you.
Right. So it doesn't matter what group you're a part of, what name it has, what process you've been walking, what you've been doing, how long you've been part of, blah, blah, blah.
How big your dick is.
Exactly. How small it is. Right. It's like, none of that matters. Because at the end of the day, the way Agent Smith works is he just walks up to people and then puts his fucking hand through them, takes them over, and now they become an agent of the system. And now
let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that happens.
That the real life mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah, I fucking love it, bro.
Yeah, boy.
Let's go. Go for it. I'm gonna go pee.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before. But
well, we could thumbnail it, but it's important because this is the problem with basing everything on your feelings and energy. Because when you do that, we have to understand is the system that is not best runs on energy. Yeah. So it needs energy. So it looks for energy. So when your starting point is energy versus principle, versus even if it feels good or doesn't feel good, happy, unhappy, doesn't matter. I'm doing it because it's the best result, but that's principle. If it's energy, then you will, what's the word? It's like, it's okay. Perfect example. It's like the creepy dude with the white van who pulls up and says, you kids want some candy? And the kids are like, hell yeah, we want some candy. Cool. Get in the van. Where's the candy? Zip. And you're like, what? What's going on here?
Zip.
If you weren't addicted to candy, would you get in a fucking white van with a creepy old dude?
No.
No. But if you're only focused on candy, you're like not even thinking about what's going on.
Yeah.
And so when you're focused on feelings and energy, you're not even looking at the consequences of that. Of the fact that your focus on energy and happiness creates poverty in other places, even in your own environment.
Right.
Being independent of energy doesn't mean you can't use any energy, because you have to use some energy. Your body runs on physical energy. But that's different than when you're being greedy and you're going beyond that. That's like, do you need to eat? Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you need to eat 5 boxes of KFC?
Per day? Or just in general?
No,
There's literally nobody who needs to eat that much KFC. There's no need. You can't tell me one person needs 5 fucking boxes at one time.
Got it.
So at that point, no, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying you don't need it. So do you need if you're doing something and you're justifying it because you're following your bliss, that means, this is a spell breaker. That means that you are not creating it. Creating your bliss. what is the source of the bliss? Where do
If
the
you-
feelings come from?
If you're not creating it, what's the source of it?
Well, no, not even if you are creating it, doesn't matter. But what is the source of bliss? Always.
Marketing.
No. Where do the feelings come from?
Internally.
Comes from different shit you've accepted and allowed throughout your life.
But where is it coming from?
The
Your own
system.
motive.
You.
It's coming from your physical body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your body is generating the feeling. Otherwise, other people would experience it, and they can't because only you can experience it because you're only one hooked up to that particular interdimensional system.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
So you are feeling the experience of the energy because it's coming from your body. It's not the other thing externally that's
It's
creating.
like when you
it.
jerk off the porn stars don't feel it.
Thank
Good
you.
point.
Just you. The girl
But according to the symbols you've set up, you're going to get the feeling or not generated because that system is in there. It's generating. It's being activated by particular symbols.
And that's what comes from the
So
world.
you might
system,
like.
but then it's in
You
you.
might like a certain type of porn.
right.
Like the plumber comes over and all this scenario, or you might like the one where it's just
no matter how
a
many
bang
times
bus.
you say, "Ooh, you like that baby?" She can't hear you.
right. So the symbols are activating it, but it's how it's been programmed, whether it was deliberately or not. So if you're saying, "Oh, I'm doing this because I'm following my bliss," you're literally living the opposite of the statement of "I can have bliss regardless of external circumstance." And I'm saying that's not true. You can't have bliss regardless of external circumstance. Can you train yourself to experience feelings of bliss based on a wider range of symbols? Yes.
Mhm.
But that's going to take some fucking mastery over your programming, which most people are not going to have access to. Especially if their first 7 years got fucked the hell up and they never did any process to change it.
Break that.
They're
down.
just going to be following their fucking programming.
Break that down a little
They're
bit.
go-
You said you can train yourself to accept a wider range of symbols in order to experience bliss.
It's like imagine
Yeah, like you can experience bliss by looking at a fucking cross.
Yeah.
Just by sitting in a church.
Yeah.
You can train yourself to experience bliss based on certain symbols.
Yeah.
And you can expand those symbols.
And then-
you can
and
be
then-
like, I just experienced bliss by just breathing.
It's like you
something.
pop the champagne every time something bad happens, and you like just bad stuff keeps happening because you're not educating yourself.
You're not
They go
changing
pop the
it.
champagne, pop the champagne. Things are going wrong, right? Pop
But-
the champagne.
Here's where I
Like
had
just
the-
stop drinking the champagne.
Here's where I had the confusion because you said it's going to require some mastery over yourself and over your systems in order to do that.
Discipline.
Hmm.
You can sit there and meditate and like create internal feelings and stuff, but that takes a lot of discipline.
Mhm.
But it's not going to teach you anything about how to do anything. It's just you jerking off. That's all you're doing. You're just upgrading the porn. You're like, I don't want to jerk off to dirty skink porn. I want to jerk off to looking at trees. So you look at the trees and you feel these feelings of oneness with nature and bliss. And it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
Cameron made a good
but what
point.
are you doing to change the environment so those trees have the needs that or have their needs met?
Okay, I see. I think so. What I was just seeing there is like the emotional definition of discipline, like an emotional point behind discipline or mastery is like, oh, you've reached mastery. Okay, well then you don't have to change anything else because you've mastered your systems within yourself so that you can experience bliss. And then that's
Right, but what's the starting point of that?
Right, exactly. How about change the real system?
Oh, hold on. How about this? What happens when every symbol, when every context that you're aware of gets taken away, when you don't even have a physical body anymore? If you don't have a physical body, how are you going to feel bliss?
Oh,
So how is anything you're doing in your life preparing you for death?
when you no longer have like a programmable system that your being is.
That you can generate energy from.
Yeah.
And you're just
Who are you?
outside of that context now.
Now what?
Is your bliss going to be based on what it was in the context here?
Because it can't be based off something that you're seeing or something that you're hearing.
Can't be based on any physical systems that are contextually from this environment, which is your body, because you won't have it. That'd be like if everything you ever did was based on porn, and then you like you ended up on a desert island with a bunch of women and no internet. And you're some fat, greasy slob who jerked off to porn the whole time. And you need to be like, it needs to be porn where it's like the
They're getting like
where
choked out and shit like that.
yeah, or like whatever, like something specific, and like they're like, we're not into that. What are you gonna do then? You don't have access to that thing, so you can't even jerk off anymore. Or like these people who jerk off to like hentai, like tentacles and stuff like that. I'm like, when is that scenario ever gonna happen?
Hardcore shit, dude. That guys, that was not rhetorical. When is that gonna happen?
When are we gonna? You know what I mean? Like tentacle porn and stuff like that. It's like, what the hell, man? Like, I mean, I get it. I understand how you can get to that point. I'm saying, like, you're never gonna experience that. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. Maybe if you have enough money.
Maybe if you're like, I'm going to create a company called SeaWorld.
Yeah. No, okay.
The octopus exhibit is closed to the public today for maintenance.
Got to keep these octopusi happy. Octopi. Did you finish what you were saying, Cameron? What's the point that you made?
Well, I guess the point was like, I'm just going back into this bliss.
How the age the system within you is what is. How do you know when you're Agent Smith? It's when you're following your feelings. Then you are doing the bidding of.
It's not when you're having feelings,
right?
It's when you're using them as the reasoning as to why you're doing something, even though it's not best for all. How do you know when you're actually changing this? When you're actually standing within principles, is when you're considering and doing what's best.
And you might feel stuff, and you might not feel stuff. That part is it's not the.
But you're gonna feel stuff. Like you're gonna feel stuff all the time. Like that's not. Your body has sensory organs, and your body generates feelings and emotions and thoughts and stuff. Like you're gonna have those things. Like, but is it going to determine what you do or don't do?
If it is, that's how you know.
Because what people did and didn't do in the past is determining what you're feeling and why you're feeling it and when you're feeling it. People say like, oh, I'm totally free and I'm taking self-responsibility on this stuff, but they haven't self-directed and changed their first 7 years. So you're not, you're just a clone of the past that's been like re-amalgamated and all jumbled up and switched around and changed so it looks like something different. So you're not a carbon copy of some past person, but you're just an amalgamation of past people.
That's why people
just computer code that got rearranged.
That's why people get confused with like, well, how do you know what's best? Because they're trying to follow their feelings, and they think that just by following their feelings and
it's unique to everyone, right?
Makes them best. Exactly.
Yeah, or like that thought of like, oh, if it feels right in my heart, somehow it's like connected to God or nature or something, like,
right,
without realizing just how deceptive the programming is.
Yeah.
So what you think is, oh, I'm following my heart, it's actually like
one of the first blogs from Christian's Journey is called Speaking from the Heart.
Yeah.
That from Bernhardt's blog. It's really good.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, and then it's funny to watch people you would think would know better start talking about the heart coming from your heart. And it's like, my heart pumps blood.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? Coming from my heart, coming from my heart. It's another genre of porn we haven't explored.
We'll get there. That's episode 73.
Let's master tentacle porn first. Then we'll get
one
to
step at a time. That's why it's a 7.
Coming from the Heart would be an amazing romance novel title.
Coming on her heart.
It's like about vampires who have like weird, yeah.
All right.
Coming from the heart.
That's another podcast. Like another series of podcasts. Here's a point I want to make super clear.
And see, like, hold on. What we're doing right now, this crude, derogatory jokes. A lot of people are not going to like that, are they?
Yeah.
Guess what?
I don't even
You're weak.
Exactly. I just let it go.
You don't have to think it's funny. Okay, you may not think it's funny. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I can't do anything you guys do because you make those kind of dirty jokes and stuff like that.
Right.
You're weak.
Right. I can't educate my children because
My child can read and yours can't.
Right. And the reason why that's so significant is why would you let that get in the way of you taking care of your family in the best way?
How teachable are you?
I made a post once of like, most people don't even know where to start to make their child successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some guy commented something along the lines of like, yeah, that's when my child's 3 and he's already, started a business. He runs a lemonade stand, all this shit. And I'm like, okay, cool. Can he read? And then the next
it's like, dude, you started a lemonade stand and put your kid in front of him and take a picture.
Next thing I knew,
Your
he
kid didn't start a lemonade stand.
Completely deleted his comment.
It's like your kid can't even spell lemonade.
Right. I was like,
how did he write the sign?
Right. Exactly. But people are so focused on the wrong fucking things. Like, how good did it make him feel to say like, oh, my kid started a business. He's running a lemonade stand. He's doing this. He's doing that. But then like, okay, but practically, how the fuck is he going to do any of that shit? Like in the real world, start a business for real if he can't even read? Why are you focusing on that now when you should be focusing on making him effective, making him actually like providing for him his needs? He needs to know how to read. Doesn't need to play pretend in a fucking lemonade stand right now. Although, that can be fun. It can be something that you do, right? But I mean, when you focus on your feelings.
But how much of it is being generated by the kid?
But when you study the human being, you can be objective about their development. You could be objective about the development. Somebody asked me, I was having a conversation and I was like, I made a statement that was like, how, when you educate people with how the human being learns best, something. And they're like, whoa, that was a semi-religious statement. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, what do you mean by semi-religious? They were like, well, when you're drawing a conclusion before you've like gathered the data for it, you're saying there's like one way that a human learns best. Then before you even really look at it, then that's like, it's kind of like God is real, therefore. I'm like, I used to think that everybody learns differently. Then I got the data, the very absolute clear data over like 5 years to be like, oh, this is obviously
what was the data that everyone learns differently?
Exactly, right? There's actually and then he sent me a video describing how everyone learns the same. And it's about dispelling the myth of learning styles. And the best way that people learn is through VARC, visual, auditory, reading, or...
You mean through your senses?
And kinesthetics, exactly. And
weird, so weird.
The best way to do it is all of them, right? And I'm like, they're like, look, they couldn't even process. Like, they're like, you see, they're saying.
But some people are just visual learners. I'm like, do they not have ears?
Right. So the point is, it's like, you can be objective if you're educated.
You know who's visual learner?
What?
The guy who talks like this.
True.
But okay.
It's like when someone says it's not about vocabulary. The picture is worth 1,000 words. It's all about images. I'm like, okay, now tell me that in a picture. You can't even draw. And you're trying to tell me pictures are more important than fucking words.
You're fucked, yeah. It's like
By the way, letters are pictures.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Now, and somebody was telling me like, aren't you just learning by association? I'm like, there's no other way to learn. How do you know my name? You associate it with me.
It's can't just learn by association.
Association.
You can learn something and you can associate it with something else. You cannot learn by an association. You can remember by an association. You cannot learn by an association. An association either occurs in the learning process or it doesn't.
Yes, exactly.
That's not learning by the association. What is an association? What is an association in this context?
Awesome. Say what you were going to say.
X is attached to Y.
There's a relationship between 2 points.
Yeah.
How do you learn by that?
Yeah.
How do you learn by a relationship between 2 things? You don't. You form the relationship by connecting that information physically in your vocabulary. But how do you actually make that connection? What's the physical mechanism? It's not the association. So what people do is they go, no, but I know this guy's Susie or this woman's Susie because Susie rhymes with snoozy and she's always falling asleep. And when I see her, she looks sleepy. And so she's snoozy Susie. She's Susie. You're Susie.
Okay.
Like, no, I'm Janet.
I was just sleepy that one time.
Susie's my twin sister, you fucktard. But it's like, I just have narcolepsy. You know? But you didn't learn it by that because you didn't learn her name. You fucking remembered it through some fucking process of association. Why don't you just know their name is Susie? Why can't you just know their name is Susie? That's the thing. It's like, oh, I have this association game I do. Why don't you just know their name is Susie?
Okay, but Asif.
Hold on. What would they say if I said, why don't you just learn and know that their name is Susie directly? Why don't you just know that?
But aren't you associating their name with their face?
No. Why don't you just know that that is Susie? Regardless of whether I'm associating their name with their face, why don't you just know that Susie? Why do you need to go Susie, snoozy, snoozy is Susie, sleepy eyes, Susie?
Right.
Why don't you just say
They
that
don't know how
face
to
is
know
Susie?
things.
Because they don't know how to learn anymore.
Yeah.
That's the point of Technotutor. You could just learn it. Because you might say, well, in that case, it's fine. It works for me. Okay, now do that with quantum physics. Do that with engineering. Do that with building a business. Do that with real estate. You're going to be like, okay, property deals, property, swapperty, swaps, swap meets, meat, bones, meat and bones, bones. If I see,
Property gives
what
me.
was I trying to remember? If there's bones buried, if it's an Indian burial ground, don't buy the property. Like, how are you gonna fucking become a lawyer through learning by association? Do you know how much, like, my stepmother went to law school when I was in high school, and she had to write 80-page papers like every weekend for multiple classes. How the fuck are you gonna be able to do that by learning through association?
Right.
Constitutional law, constitution, constipation. You got to take a shit, spitball. Like, wait, what does it have to do with constitution? What's the preamble?
Oh, they're shitting all over our constitution. Oh, I
like how with everything you do, you're gonna do that? Like when you have a conversation, are you like converse, all stars? I'm an all-star. Conversation. Okay. Conversations are like a pirate, patch, eye patch. Okay, conversations are fun, bun, sun, in the sun, having fun. Conversations are fun. That's what I'm trying to say, guys. But I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, what was it?
All stars.
All stars.
Pirate sons.
Pirate patch, sun. Because conversations are fun.
Pirate patch.
That's how I'm going to remember that first 3 words of my 1,000 word speech.
Dude,
I'm going to be up there going, damn, these all-stars I'm wearing, pirates are coming to steal my all-stars and it's baking me in the sun. Conversations are fun, everybody. Don't you agree? Like, what? You're going to remember a fucking speech? Is that what Obama does?
No.
Imagine what's going through Obama's head. He's like, those fucking pirates trying to steal my Converse All-Stars. It's too hot for that
He's
shit.
like, we.
Conversations are fun.
That's why great speakers.
Conversations are fun.
That's why he takes so long pauses. It's because he's going through these. We, nation to the nation as a nation. For me, Michelle, on top, must transcend.
Okay, here's the thing, real quick. Those kind of techniques are kind of effective when you have a very good memory. Someone like me can take those kind of techniques and go to the next fucking level in particular scenarios. And you'll stand out way past everybody. Because, like, here's the thing. If you're really good at business and you're really friendly, you probably don't have a really good memory. Because you sucked at school, because you had a shitty memory, which is why you had to become real friendly and know how to like interact with people and make everyone like you. It's very rare you get someone like Asif who has both. Right? You probably still had to do that. Right? But what I'm saying is you didn't have a good memory, so you had to develop all these social skills. That's why all these entrepreneurs are like, oh yeah, I had dyslexia and I was terrible in school and all this stuff and I really struggled, but that's why I'm such a good entrepreneur. But then I learned these memorization techniques, and that's what helped me, because I can never remember people's names, man. And it really held me back until I learned these techniques. And then it's like, yeah, but you already had the vocabulary of building business. Da, 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 da. So somebody who has no fucking vocabulary for building a business was an employee their whole life and has that mindset. And then they learn memorization techniques about learning people's names. That's not the missing ingredient as to why they're not successful. You see what I'm saying? It's easy to sell that to somebody, to be like, hey, it's because you need to, and because you get excited about it. You're like, oh, I can study a course. Okay, now go cold call. I'm going to say I'm not going to say it. My memorization courses to get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was good.
It's true though.
Yeah,
and that's why there's not going to be, unless you develop your vocabulary in a way that you study things and you're memorizing what somebody is saying is basically useless. Like there's a lot of people who are like, for example, I want to take notes on everything you say.
I was about to say that.
It's like, why? And I used to do this.
Hold on real quick. I was talking with Keith the other day and he was taking some notes. And then later he was like, okay, this is all really good. Okay, something else I wanted to ask you about was this. That's a cool reason to take notes when you're talking to somebody. You're like, okay, I want to make sure I bring that up. Okay, but I'm listening. Versus, right. Hold on, can you go back and say that again? Like,
just repeat it exactly the way, yeah.
Like, listen to what I'm saying right now.
Yeah.
If you need to like make a note so you don't forget, I do that sometimes. Mm-hmm. That's fine, but.
So here's a little communication secret. If you're using TechnoTutor and you can process information.
Oh, secrets. Here we go.
Pretty big if.
I like
this
secrets.
Is, right. Well, hopefully not at this point if it's a big if. You're supposed to buy TechnoTutor at, the reason why we repeat the same stuff.
If they're still here after tentacle porn, they probably already have TechnoTutor.
You were supposed to buy TechnoTutor at episode 2 and then.
No, it's just at episode 1.
Exactly. Yeah. You're supposed to hear our story and then buy it. And then by now, what's the episode number?
56, I think we're on.
Right. It's like we're repeating what we said in episode 4. Now you can process it. So because you've been using your TechnoTutor all this time. If not, you're probably still not doing anything that you're proud of yourself for. What was I going to say?
If you're going to say that, TechnoTutor, here's a big secret.
Communication secret. Okay. Yeah, for those of you who are taking notes, stop taking notes and just focus on what the person's saying. And what you're going to realize is you'll be able to extract why someone is saying something way more effectively.
It's rather funny because if they're using TechnoTutor, you won't have to even tell them this, will you?
Right.
The reason why they're taking notes is because they can't fucking process what the person's saying. Mm-hmm. So you're like, I got to write it all down because I can't. That's why people take notes in school. I never fucking took notes in school. I was in the top quarter of my class at a super elite private school when I was a National Merit Scholar. I didn't have to take notes because I could remember, because I could process what was being said, because I had the vocabulary underneath to understand all of it.
Mm. And the word understand, to have the fucking vocabulary.
It's literally I like how people like are really dumb, and so they can't understand things. So they're like, no, it's about understanding. They try to like change the word.
Yeah. I overstand.
It's like, right. It's like, it's not about creating a business. It's about attracting a business. And you're
like how is understand the opposite of understand? I guess not opposite, but it's
the law of attraction works probably. I would say the law of attraction works probably in one key industry: industrial magnets.
So serious.
You're a dumbass. No,
What?
you know what I find is like I was reading some comment thread yesterday. My mom had showed it to me, and Mitchell was commenting something about you need to expand your vocabulary, and somebody wanted to go back and forth with Mitchell, and they were like,
Oh, never a good idea.
it was funny because they were trying to say something along the lines of like, oh, that's so limited, like you think it's just about vocabulary, and like, and then they were trying to make the point of like, you just have to understand, you know, blah blah blah, and like, okay, that's what the fuck vocabulary is. It's understanding. Like, you are clearly,
If you're saying
retarded.
I have to understand X, Y, Z, you're saying there's a limit to my vocabulary.
Right.
I'm not understanding it because I don't have all the context and words
Right.
to understand it.
Exactly.
You're trying to give me more information and build my vocabulary into an understanding of something.
Right. That's what people don't understand about the definition of understand. Like, I love every time Asif breaks that down. I love
Do it. Break it down again.
Asif, would you please?
Understand means to perceive the intended meaning of open bracket words, comma, speaker, comma, language, close bracket.
There
Language,
you go.
just words.
At first, I thought you were doing that quantum grammar shit. I don't have colons.
Exactly.
There's too many colons. And there's also way too many assholes.
And not enough shit. Not enough shit coming out, you know?
Too many colons. Yeah.
You guys are holding all that shit in. It's toxic. It's not good for you.
Gotta express.
But
Perceive the intended meaning of words or something, someone who's speaking or something, right?
right, exactly. And that's like so crucial. Like, people don't understand what it means to understand. And they go throughout life, and like we talked about this on the last podcast, but they go throughout life not knowing what it even means to like communicate with someone, to understand someone, to actually like, everything is just kind of like a blur to them. Everything is just like, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I was telling someone, it's like, if you're going to your house and I say it's just in this general direction, and I give you a whole fucking neighborhood with 1,000 fucking homes in it, and I'm like, this is where your new house is, here's the key, there you go, enjoy yourself. Like, are you gonna prefer that, or if you're gonna prefer,
some fucking asshole would be like, I will just let my feelings guide me.
yeah, like, I would love to just go to every,
You better hope to God you don't
open
show up at my
every-
property at the front door and I'm driving up my driveway and I see you going into my house and my family's at home.
right, exactly. So imagine behind every other door that's not your house is a Cameron who wants to protect his family
With
and
no
has the means to
kids.
do it. But yeah,
Cameron, you're 1 in 8 billion. It's okay.
It's just
There's no other
me standing
Cameron.
behind that door,
Every time.
no clothes on and my camo Crocs. It puts the lotion on its skin.
Jesus.
and that what's that metal mesh called?
I hope we get banned.
It's just
Hardware
me
mesh.
and some hardware cloth.
No clothes on. Hey baby. Oh, don't touch that.
Don't twist.
Don't pull out.
Yeah. But
So,
I mean, would you prefer that or actually having the fucking, directions?
That's
and
a
address,
beautiful analogy. Yeah.
right? But that's what it
Your
means to like,
GPS.
have it clearly defined. Everyone has, like you said this last time, like you've got thousands of words that even if they have just a 1% inefficiency, you're not clear. You're not going the direction that you want.
Imagine you take the map, the GPS map, right? And you give
Yeah.
it to a 2-year-old.
Right.
What are they going
That means nothing to them. I think you froze. You froze? Okay, you're here.
They're going to be like, yeah. I was watching Mitch's and I thought he went to sleep. He was like,
Narcolepsy.
Susie!
Susie's.
Dre Janet?
You're Janet, right?
No.
I got yelled at the last time.
All right. Yeah.
Can you imagine the anxiety that you experience when you're like, Snoozy, Susie, okay, please be right. Versus also like, if I don't recognize somebody, I'm like, I don't have we met before? Can you tell me your name again? What was your name?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Problem solved.
It's so easy
Yeah.
because I used to be uncomfortable doing that, but now I'm like, hey, can you tell me your name one more time? Thank you. That's right. David. Okay. David. Like, I care. I want to know it. Like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with that?
Yeah.
Like, well, but you can't do that with Bill Gates. They're just going to like walk out the room. Like, I think I'll remember Bill Gates' name. I'm not too worried about that. I'm pretty sure I'll recognize it. Okay. What were we talking about there? There was a point I was
If you give a 2-year-old a GPS.
the map.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool story, right? So last night, laying in bed with Max, he's going to sleep, right? We're reading books, snuggled up, and he's got a stack of books like this from the library. I think they let us go past the limit, to be honest.
Well,
You all
every
could
week
probably
they-
each get a library card
It's
too.
literally, he's the only kid going to that library. So anyways, he's got this book called Mapping Penny's World, and he really likes this book. He really likes maps. And I'm not talking about he's like obsessed about different maps and stuff. He's just always not always, but he likes to talk about maps. Like if you looked at a tree, you know, like an oak tree, and it has all the bark and different striations and all this stuff, right? He'll be like, look, it's a map. Right? So he'll like sees different patterns and he's like, it's a map. Or he'll like pick up something and he'll be like, I have a map. Or it's like a leaf and it's got lines and he's like, I've got a map.
When I was over
Right,
there.
yeah. He likes to play like that, right?
He must be a Capricorn.
Nope.
I'm
I
just
think
fucking-
he's a Scorpio.
Ooh. That makes so much more sense. Oh my gosh.
Ding ya. Anyway, so this book called Mapping Penny's World, and it's like a kid who is in school and they're doing a project about maps and they're learning about maps. And it's really cool because like he goes home and he makes a map of his room and he makes a map of like the path from one dog's house to the other dog friend's house and like all these different maps. And it explains to you what the title of a map is, the different symbols, the key, explaining to you
Well, that's a
how
cool
to
book.
read a map. It's a really cool book. Like it's a fun book. And I actually like, it's like one of those books where I like reading it with him, you know?
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun.
Cameron's like reading it. He brings it
Max
to
goes to
his
sleep. He's like, damn, this is good.
Oh, like, hold on. But he's asking because he can read all the words. So I'm like, okay. And he's like, he goes, what's the title? He knows the answer, but he wants me to explain it, right? And I'm like, okay, well, the title explains to you what it's a map of. And he's like, oh, well, talk about the symbols. And I'm like, okay, well, look, we got all these different symbols here. And then you see the symbols on the map. And this is the key telling you what they are. And I said, can you find the sidewalk? And like all the symbols are so arbitrary, but he can read the word sidewalk. So he sees the symbol and he goes, right there. And I'm like, cool. Can you find the exits? It's like a green line. So he's looking at the picture of the school and it's got like the green lines in certain places. And he's like, there. I said, there's actually 5 exits. He's like, because one of them's kind of in the crease and finally he finds it, you know. But what's cool about it is like, I'm through the book teaching him how to read a map. Like, oh, there's symbols. And he's like, what's the scale? And it's got the scale, right? And I said, okay, so it says 1 unit is 10 feet. And what that means is every amount of that distance on this map represents in the real physical world 10 feet in the real world. So what's on here, the real world, the real thing that this represents is 10 feet for every 1 unit of this distance they're putting here. So let's see, how many units do you think, let's figure out, is that wall? Okay, so it's about 10 units. And this says 1 unit is 10 feet. So there's 10 units that this wall is here. So in real life, how big would that wall be? And he goes, well, 10 times 10, 100.
Oh,
I'm like,
shit.
right. So in real life, this school would have a 100-foot wall here. And we could do that with the whole thing. So you kind of have an idea of the actual scale of things, right? And he's like, well, what's this compass rose? I'm like, well, that's telling us on the map which direction is north, south, east, and west. And I said, so if I wanted to go from the sidewalk to the playground, what direction would I go? And he goes, up. And I said, well, according to the compass rose, what would it be? And he goes, north. And I said, is north always up? And he's like, well, yeah. And I said, no. I said, watch. And I laid the book flat. And I was like, watch this. And I turned upside down. And I said, now what direction is north? He said, down. I said, so north and south is not up and down. It's more like forward or backward, but only if you're pointing in that direction, right? So north is actually a particular direction on our planet, and south is a particular direction. So we can make a map and show which direction is north. So I was explaining all that to him. He's like, okay, cool. So I would be like, okay, so if I want to go from here to here, what direction would I have to go according to the compass? The compass rose on the map. He's like, east. I'm like, cool. Right. So he's like learning these points, right? So I'm helping him develop the vocabulary of how to read a map. He's not going to just randomly figure it out. But when you look at a map, don't you take all that for granted?
Yeah.
You might remember being in school or somewhere where you learned about the symbol, the key. You probably remember that lesson vaguely, right? Somebody explained it to you. Or maybe you developed your vocabulary to a point where you could figure it out at that point. You could kind of process it yourself, but you had to have a prerequisite vocabulary. So now imagine being 4 years old and you can read a map because someone deliberately built the vocabulary and make sure everything was clear. Like, why does it say rose? Why does it say compass? There's not a compass on here. What is it? Right. So, but explaining all of these points, not being like, like key. What key? I don't see a key. No, a key meaning like a list of the meanings of symbols and words. And then there was another page we went to where there was no symbols. It was just like a bush, or no, 1 bush, 2 tree, 3 bench, 4. And he goes, why are there 2 6s on the map? And I was like, well, what does 6 say? He says, a place for shade. He's like, well, there are 2 places for shade on the map, so I guess you could have 2 of the same one, right? And he goes, oh, this one doesn't have symbols. And I was like, does it? And he goes, well, I mean, I guess the numbers are the symbols. Numbers are symbols.
Oh, that's cool.
This is like what I'm talking to my 4-year-old about at 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm there to direct it because I understand things about this that he doesn't. And if you left it at that, and it's like, see, you just need to read to your kids more. Well, if a single mother who has 3 jobs at Walmart, or a single dad who has 3 jobs at Walmart, could explain all of those things, not just the compass map stuff, but like they could explain all the stuff the child needs to know. Like they could explain how to build a business. They could read to them about all that stuff. Why wouldn't the fucking parent be doing that stuff? Yeah. In other words, isn't it obvious the parent doesn't have that vocabulary? So what books are they going to read to their kids? What things are they going to talk about? So the solution isn't just read to your kids, because the parent can't, there's a limit to how far the parent can read. Like they should just be teaching financial literacy and all this stuff in school. And the schools are doing a terrible job. I'm like, the teachers are not financially literate. They should teach more entrepreneurship in schools. Entrepreneurs aren't going to be teaching in a school.
Right.
They're going to build a business with something that gives them the vocabulary. Isn't it?
Also,
that's what they're going to do.
A bunch of children's books are not best for children, and they impulse
no shit,
bullshit and everything.
Negative fucking.
And so if you don't have the vocabulary to see that, even, you're just going to be giving your kids the wrong fucking books that are just going to fuck them up.
Oh man, that's so true. If you don't understand how your child learns, and what if you're not really considering what would be best, and what is my child going to get from this book, then you're just and you think the solution is I got to read to my child more.
Oh. Yeah, and you're giving them Disney books and shit.
Pretty bad.
You guys have those like libraries in people's yards around your city?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's hilarious. I'll go around it. Every time Jess and I are driving, we see one, we'll stop. And it's 0.5% of all the books we'll end up getting. We're building our library, and like there's occasionally a cool one. Like we got a biography of John F. Kennedy. I was like, oh, that's cool. Or we'll see like some, and we always see these kid ones, but we'll read it. And it's just appalling how 98% of the kid ones are just so much emotion is built into it. They're like, the cloud was sad, so it started crying, and the mountain was strong because it was this. It's like,
or it's like a weird kid who's a loner and everyone laughs at him, but he's the champion in the end. And you're like,
right,
he still stays a weird kid or something, and you're like, it's just a bunch of bullshit to make you feel secure about your weakness.
Yeah. Wow. The further we get out of Minneapolis, though, it's actually fascinating. The more practical the books are. In the city, it's just like romance novels and just like all this.
Cool.
Shit.
That's really cool.
It's
Though.
it's just distraction entertainment.
Exactly. Not here like how to build a birdhouse. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, like my neighbors came by with a stack of books and it was like all about chicken coops and this and that. And they were like, yeah, you should consider building one where you can move the run for the grass and all this stuff. I'm like, cool.
But that's smart. That makes sense. So you don't like kill the grass.
Now you have the understanding, Drake.
Of course, I didn't do that.
Well, you live and you learn.
But it was what I could do at the moment. And so what I think I'll end up doing is just building a bigger run around the coop.
I think what's going to happen is when we all come visit, then you'll build that mobile run.
Somehow you guys are going to learn how to build these coops and stuff. Actually, I think you guys will really like it, man. Like
we're gonna have to drive down, so whatever we build there, I can actually transport it back.
What?
He's taking it home with him.
No, I'm gonna build a chicken coop.
And then you're gonna. It's like
you're not gonna be able to take that with you, but you can put all the cuts if you want. You can use all the stuff, but bring the lumber back.
True. You can take the stuff and then build it at home.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or you can just get all the tools at home. You got like a shop, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Dude,
Yeah, man.
Got plenty of stuff.
I can't wait to come down there and
I'm glad you
So-
have good internet. It's great.
I know.
Really nice.
Oh yeah, you got that sorted out.
Yeah,
I know.
that's awesome.
Look at that.
Look at those French
You
doors. man.
manifested that, buddy. You guys are good manifester.
I just
Right?
felt bliss.
The internet company called you, right?
Yeah, they knocked on my door and they're just like, "Hey, we're here."
Yeah,
to
if you
sell
think you
internet."
just manifest by feeling good, call
You're like,
fucking
damn.
customer service.
I was just thinking, like, I hope they show up, and they just showed up. It had nothing to do with the window of time that they gave me that they're going to show up at, and I didn't like. I know I call them, but it's more so about the manifestation. Right?
But it sounds like you guys are just saying you should just feel negatively about stuff and make excuses and give up at every turn, and like you should just never focus on what you want. That's what
Oh
you're
yeah,
saying.
that's definitely what we're saying.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
You
Totally.
you have a high vocabulary, high processing ability.
super high vocabulary.
Mitchell wasn't doing his dream board recently because he doesn't focus on that stuff. He doesn't focus on what he wants.
My dream board is probably a 8-foot 2x4.
But is it particle board or what?
I prefer pine or whitewood.
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh no.
Not too bad.
So, moralists, fuck you. Shout out.
I would love to see on a shirt that one quote from Bernard where he says, "So if you're not Dustonian, fuck off." That's such a good quote. And it's so true.
I want one.
Where does he say that?
It's at the end of it's called All Time, Every Time, Every Breath. It's from the Breath compilation.
Oh, okay.
The very
I'll do
last
that.
line. So good. Yeah.
But he's not allowed to say that though.
Well, he is because he walked his process fully, but nobody else can ever get close to that. So
Right, exactly.
how dare you
Don't-
for even thinking that?
And here's the
That was
thing.
way better. That was a way better answer. Yeah. I want one that says, if you're not team life, you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
What blog was that, Cameron? The one where that's what he's like, so join Destiny. And if you don't, it's okay because you're irrelevant. And I'm
Was
like,
it a blog or a video?
it was a blog. It was a blog.
I'm not sure.
And I'll find it. But
Probably just search the word irrelevant.
Yeah.
it's just the last reason I want to bring that up is like, there's no point. I mean, there is a point actually shitting on us. It helps more people find us. So like we said before, if you hate this podcast, share
Like,
it.
comment, subscribe, and share.
Yeah.
That's a comment.
Make a reaction video to it. Oh my God, look at how these idiots talk about tentacle porn. There's communists, tentacle porning, chicken cooping motherfuckers, right? And spread the word because we need more people that hate us. It's really important. It's all about-
That's actually all we're interested in is a bunch of people who hate
Yeah.
us.
That's why we say everything like that. Yeah, fuck it. Let's wrap it. I got some other points, but we'll talk about them on another podcast.
Well, get out your other points. Get it out there. Come on.
It's
Let the
okay.
world know.
No, you have to come to the next podcast. You have to listen to the next podcast.
Ooh.
Oh, dude, I have a really good one real quick. Nah,
Okay.
next podcast.
Oh, I actually thought of the best idea, but I'm going to save it till podcast 60.
All right, nice. Well, we'll see you guys on the next podcast then.
And on
Cheers.
podcast 60.
Cheers.